Chapter 772. Pei Tianyuan pointed to a spot not far away from him, indicating to Sharon and Pei Yu. However, there were only 2 people there. However, Sharon's group had 4 people. Even if Pei Yu's serving girl was removed, Sharon, Pei Yu, and Qin Wentian were still 3 people. Sharon glanced at them, then shook his head. Let's find another place to sit. Yes, over there. Pei Yu pointed in a direction. The seat in the middle didn't seem to match Sharon's status. Hence Pei Tianyuan replied. How can this do? I still wish to have a good chat with noble nephew Sharon. Since there's not enough space, Pei Xiao, please step aside. Pei Xiao was sitting right next to those 2 seats. It seemed like Pei Tianyuan had intentionally chosen those 2 seats for Sharon. With a single glance, he could tell that the reason Sharon wasn't sitting was because there was an extra person, so he had Pei Xiao give up his seat. Pei Xiao's brows twitched as he glanced at Pei Yu and Qin Wentian. A trace of displeasure flashed in the depths of his eyes, but since it was an order from the Jiangling king, how could he disobey? He could only nod his head and stand up, feeling somewhat awkward. At this moment someone called out, Pei Xiao, come sit here. Pei Xiao glanced at the person who spoke as a smile flickered in his eyes. Many thanks for brother Jiang Yan's kindness. Haha, that's for the best. Dear nephew Sharon, come and have a seat. Pei Tianyuan laughed. Sharon naturally wouldn't reject and hence, the 3 of them walked over and sat down. Their opponents were none other than Jiang Yan and Pei Xiao, as well as Nyan of the 9-Sword sect. Other than these people, there were also many geniuses from the major powers, all of them exuding an extraordinary aura. Many of them were disciples from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. Let me introduce us old fellows. I'm Pei Tianyuan. I'm sure all of you already know me. The one beside me is Ji Kong, a disciple of the Cloud Tower Sage sect, the Cloud Tower Lord of the Jiangling country. I'm sure all of you have heard of him before. The one on my right is the City Lord of the Drift Snow City, Xikong Yangxue. Pei Tianyuan smiled at the crowd and said, as for the outstanding talents here, I believe you all know each other, so I won't introduce you all. Qin Wentian glanced at Xikong Yangxue, the current City Lord of the Drift Snow City. When compared to the legendary Drift Snow Master, Xikong Yangxue was far inferior. This Drift Snow City is an ancient place. There's also an ancient legend about the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade. It's rumored that back then, the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade fell in love in this place. If one could turn back time and see the scene of the Drift Snow Master playing the zither and Immortal Jade dancing in the snow, that would truly be the most beautiful thing in life. Pei Tianyuan was extremely talkative. As the Jiangling king of the Jiangling country, he had also heard of this legend before. I've also heard of the story of the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade. However, I still doubt the veracity of the story. Where is the city the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade created? In addition, we only pursue the martial path for the sake of transcendence, pursuing the supreme realm. It's the same for weaponsmithing. Living is the foundation of everything. Immortal Jade gave up her life for the sake of weaponsmithing. It's already hard to understand how deep her obsession is. As for the Drift Snow Master, would he really give up his life for the sake of a woman and protect Immortal Jade's withered body? A person spoke. Pei Tianyuan's gaze turned to the person who spoke. This person had a fair and handsome countenance, and was dressed casually. His brows were like swords, slanting to the side, and his eyes were filled with wisdom and wisdom. Through his deep gaze, one could see many secrets hidden in his mind. This person was none other than a disciple of the Myriad Sage Academy of the Cloud Prefecture, Shu Luyao. The Myriad Sage Academy is as expected of the sacred ground of the Cloud Prefecture. There's nothing they don't know about. Right now, the legend of the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade isn't known by many. Even in our Jiangling country, there aren't many who know about it. I only learned about it after reading through many ancient records. To think that virtuous nephew Shu would also know about this story, I'm truly impressed. Pei Tianyuan nodded to Shu Luyao with a smile. He didn't express any opinion on Shu Luyao's words. Knowing the details makes me even more suspicious. Most probably, this rumor is just to deceive those ignorant fools. In this legend, the Drift Snow Master and Immortal Jade are nothing but fools. Shu Luyao's tone grew sharper. He had no respect for the legend at all. Naturally, the legend was, after all, something that was too far away. Nobody would say anything because of Xu Luyao's arrogant words. Even Pei Tianyuan only smiled. Only Pei Yu had a frown on her face as she spoke unhappily. The personalities of everyone in the world are all different. You are an emotionless person. How can you say that the sentiments of others are fools? I've always heard that the Myriad Sage Academy is a sacred ground of the Cloud Prefecture, giving birth to many experts whose names shook the entire Cloud Prefecture. I always thought that people from the Myriad Sage Academy would have the breadth of the world in their hearts, able to accept all the rumors in the world. However, you actually said that the Driftsnow Master and Immortal Jade are fools? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Pei Yu was a sentimental person. She had always believed in the story between the Driftsnow Master and Immortal Jade. If Xu Luyao only had doubts, she wouldn't be angry. But the latter part of Xu Luyao's words was a direct insult to the legend. She couldn't help but feel anger in her heart. Hence, her words were extremely sharp. Xu Luyao's sword-like brows twitched when he heard this. His gaze grew even sharper, as though sharp swords were about to shoot out from his eyes. You said that I'm thinking too highly of myself? Xu Luyao's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at Pei Yu. Could it be that she's wrong? Using your own personality to judge others? Could it be that you think everyone in the world is the same as you? Isn't this thinking too highly of yourself? Upon seeing this scene, Sharon, who was beside Pei Yu, coldly spoke. A moment later, Xu Luyao's gaze turned over, landing on Sharon as he coldly laughed. Seems like your relationship isn't bad. After speaking, he didn't say anything more. However, that mocking gaze of his seemed to contain a different meaning, causing Pei Yu to be even more enraged. However, Sharon calmly replied, "The major powers in the world are all the same. I heard that there are many outstanding characters from the Myriad Sage Academy, but it's hard to say that there wouldn't be scum among them." Sharon, your words are too overboard. Brother Xu has never offended you before, right? Aren't you going too far by humiliating him in public? At this moment, Jiang Yan interjected. Brother Xu is a heaven chosen of the Myriad Sage Academy. The word scum in your mouth is simply too arrogant. As the sound of his voice faded, expressions of interest appeared on the faces of many. Seems like this Jiang Yan didn't want the world to be in chaos, and intentionally wanted to intensify the conflict between Sharon and Xu Luyao. I've always admired the Myriad Sage Academy. Sharon, you are truly too much. Nian continued, adding oil to the fire. And as expected, the moment their words rang out, it was impossible for Xu Luyao to ignore even if he wanted to. At this moment, the gazes of everyone were all on him. Sharon's arrogance isn't just for a moment, right? When the 9 immortality bells were rung, this fellow already lost his composure and started to provoke others everywhere. Haha. Another person laughed. This person was also a disciple from a major power, the Battle Heaven's immortal manor of the Cloud Prefecture. The combat prowess of this power was extremely high and their influence could be found all over the Cloud Prefecture. Even in the Jiangling country, they had a subordinate power named the War Immortal Palace. Zurius from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor. Seems like he's also someone who likes to stir up trouble. Everyone silently mused. Zurius didn't have any intentions of intentionally provoking Sharon. He only spoke because he felt that it was interesting. Xu Luyao had a heavy expression on his face. In front of so many people, he truly couldn't maintain his face. Scum. At the very least, I won't play around with women in the Jiangling country. She is someone from the Jiangling King Manor. I will naturally give face to the Jiangling King Manor, and not bicker with her. Why are you in such a hurry to speak? What are you trying to say? Xu Luyao coldly laughed. His gaze was fixed on Sharon and Pei Yu as his tone was filled with evilness. Pei Tianyuan quietly watched. Even though Pei Yu was implicated, he didn't even interrupt. Pei Yu's talent in the Jiangling King Manor was ordinary and her status was ordinary as well. Right now, she became the spark of conflict between two geniuses. Although Xu Luyao's words wrongly accused her, if Sharon couldn't forget about this matter and really got together with Pei Yu, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Calling you scum is already praising you too much. Sharon mocked. Me, Brother Tianwen, and Peiyu have only known each other for a short period of time. Our temperaments are similar, and we became good friends. But when it came out of your mouth, the meaning of my words changed completely. How rude of you. The three of you together? What a heavy taste. Nyan coldly spoke when she heard that. After that, the gazes of everyone landed on her as faint smiles appeared in their eyes. How interesting. This Nyan might seem cold and arrogant, but her words were filled with evil. Naturally, the reason why Nyan would be like this was because of Sharon's domineering attitude earlier. Evidently, she hadn't swallowed her anger yet. Peiyu's body trembled slightly. Her dainty fists were clenched tightly as her countenance turned pale. For a female to be humiliated like this, it was already extremely serious. Especially in such a setting. Nyan's words were like sharp arrows, piercing into the hearts of others. Qin Wentian's sharp senses could see the changes in Peiyu's countenance as well as the trembling of her body. He also felt some anger in his heart. These people actually dared to humiliate a young lady in the prime of her youth? Inclining his head, his gaze turned to Nyan. This cold and arrogant young lady from the Seven Sword sect had expelled him earlier. Evidently, she was a selfish woman who didn't care about others. Someone who can speak such shameless words is actually a female? This is simply unimaginable. Could it be that you have done such a thing before? If not, why would you say such words? Qin Wentian stared at Nyan as he emotionlessly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, Nyan's countenance instantly turned cold. Her sword-like eyes stared in the direction of Qin Wentian as she icily spoke. Impudent. Who do you think you are? You even dare to speak in such a manner. Do you believe that I won't kill you right here and now? The gazes of several people landed on Qin Wentian. Jiang Yin also coldly spoke. Who is this fellow? Where did he come from? Do you have the qualifications to speak here? How interesting. Most probably because he is sitting together with Sharon, he doesn't even know who he is. Shu Luyao glanced at the people around him as he asked, do any of you know this person? Everyone shook their heads as mocking gazes appeared on their faces. Sharon had a high status, but this person was different. He actually dared to insult Nyan in such a setting. Those people still had some trepidation when they wanted to make things difficult for Sharon. But now that they caught hold of Qin Wentian, how could they not ruthlessly attack him? Such methods were extremely common. Chapter 773. Sharon referred to him as Tianwen. I've never heard of this name before. I've already seen through his cultivation base. At the third level of celestial phenomenon, not bad. At the very least, he can't be considered the weakest among us. Before this man tried to comprehend the 9 immortality bells, he sat there unmoving and didn't move at all. Yet he chose to sit there and waste time. Even I feel some admiration for him. Haha, even I'm curious now. Sharon, who is your brother Tianwen exactly? Zuria stared at Sharon as he asked. I can understand if you want a woman to sit beside you. But he is a man. If he doesn't have any background, what qualifications does he have to sit there? He even made the Jiangling King order Pei Xiao to step aside. Why must I tell you guys? Sharon's gaze turned cold as he swept his gaze over everyone. A bunch of arrogant fellows. Maybe you guys will have the chance to get to know each other in the future. Who was Qin Wentian? He was filled with anticipation. If Qin Wentian had completely formed a connection with the 9 immortality bells, or if Qin Wentian didn't conceal anything, these people would instantly know who Qin Wentian was. At that time, they wouldn't act like they did now, using Qin Wentian as an excuse to speak rudely. In the future, I don't have much interest. Zurius faintly spoke. Nyan's cold gaze pierced straight at Qin Wentian as she spoke. In the future? She dared to humiliate me? If she doesn't kneel down and apologize today, she most probably wouldn't be able to live to see the future. Peiyu's countenance changed as she coldly replied. You were the one who insulted us first and that doesn't count? Today is the banquet hosted by the Jiangling King. Aren't your actions a little too unreasonable? Is that so? I can apologize to you if you want, as long as you can defeat me. Nyan coldly laughed. As for today, although the banquet is hosted by the Jiangling King, I, a disciple of the Seven Sword sect, also have no way to endure such humiliation. It's fine if he doesn't kneel down and apologize. I will directly challenge him. I believe the Jiangling king wouldn't interfere, right? Everyone, please calm down. Pei Tianyuan smiled when he saw Nian looking over. We are all guests from afar. Why is there a need for this? After saying that, he looked at Qin Wentian and said, this young man should also be an elite of some force. Why don't you introduce him to ease the tension? Everyone, please take a step back. My cultivation is not good, so I don't dare to report to my sect, Qin Wentian replied indifferently. Pei Tianyuan's eyes flickered. Then he smiled and said, could it be that you're from a clan? Sorry. Qin Wentian nodded his head to the Jiangling king. He still didn't say anything. Pei Tianyuan didn't continue asking, but Zurius from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor laughed. Is it because your sect is too weak or you don't even have a sect? As a man, why must you hide so much? Wouldn't others look down on you? No comment. Qin Wentian's tone became colder as well. These disciples from the major powers of the Yunzhou were all arrogant and rude. Of course, maybe they were only like this to him, or maybe it was because they thought that their identities were out of the ordinary. Jiangling king, you should have seen it too, right? Nian spoke again. The Jiangling king Pei Tianyuan laughed. Since little brother is unwilling to resolve this, I believe you should be able to handle it. I won't interfere then. Everyone can settle their grudges among yourselves. I'm afraid I don't have the qualifications to interfere. When Nian heard this, a cold smile flickered on her face. Her eyes gleamed with sharpness as she lunged towards Qin Wentian. If you beg me, you might have a chance to live. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at Nian, ignoring her. Sharon coldly laughed. Why didn't you challenge me but chose Brother Tianwen instead? Nian's cold eyes gleamed with coldness as she stared at Sharon. Another person beside her spoke. Nian, no matter what, you are someone from the Seven Sword sect and have an extraordinary cultivation base. If you want to challenge me, just look for Sharon. What's the big deal about challenging a third-level ascendant? Don't you feel that you're throwing away the face of the Seven Sword sect? How laughable. She's still so complacent. Sharon also laughed. The lines on his face were filled with mockery. After which he turned to the person who spoke, to Qin Wentian. Ghost Saber Muyen, my good friend. Muyen, this is Brother Tianwen. Sharon glanced at the person who spoke. Muyen wore a simple white robe, and sat in an inconspicuous position. In fact, he didn't seem very eye-catching at all. At first, no one noticed his existence. Clearly, many people didn't know who he was. But as the sound of Sharon's voice faded, several people drew in a deep breath as they stared at the person who spoke. Only to see Ghost Saber Muyen had a frivolous smile on his face, with hints of playfulness in his eyes. His lips curled up in an arc, giving off a sense of frivolity. Ghost Saber Muyen wasn't a disciple from a supreme power of the Cloud Prefecture, but his existence was something that nobody could ignore. Muyen's master was a true grandmaster of the saber, a ghostly genius with terrifying strength. He was a character that even the experts of the Cloud Prefecture revered. His master had a unique characteristic: his saber wouldn't be unsheathed, but once it was unsheathed, blood would definitely be spilled. If it wasn't the blood of others, it would be his own blood. Therefore, Muyen's master was known as the Sabersman of Death. The Sabersman of Death only had one disciple in his life, and that was Ghost Saber Muyen. Muyen had completely inherited his master's characteristics. Either he didn't draw his saber, or if he did, there would be blood. Therefore, in the younger generation, Ghost Saber Muyen was an existence that very few people dared to provoke. Ghost Saber Muyen actually came as well. The eyes of the crowd gleamed with astonishment. This fellow didn't announce his name, and there weren't many people who had seen him before. Hence, nobody in the crowd knew who he was, and had only heard of his reputation. It was said that Ghost Saber Muyen had an extremely good relationship with Sharon. He had requested Sharon to forge several sabers for him, and all of them were kept by him. Muyen and Qin Wentian exchanged glances and smiled, nodding to each other. Ghost Saber Muyen, I've long heard of you. It's rumored that your saber is extremely fast, so fast that when the saber slashed past the neck, the head would be separated from the body, but the person would still be alive. Shu Luyao stared at Ghost Saber, his eyes flickering with coldness. This Ghost Saber Mu Yen suddenly appeared, mocking Nian, and had disturbed them. Although Ghost Saber Mu Yen was extremely famous, he Shu Luyao was also a disciple of the Myriad Sage Academy. How could he be weak? Not bad, do you want to take a look? Mu Yen abruptly inclined his head, glancing at Shu Luyao as a strange smile appeared on his face. This caused Shu Luyao to tighten his grip slightly. This Mu Yen was clearly provoking him. There will be a chance in the future. However, this matter now has nothing to do with you. Some blind idiots have spoken the wrong words. Let's teach him a lesson first, teaching him how to conduct himself. Shu Luyao still cleverly avoided Mu Yan's provocation, pointing the spearhead at Qin Wentian. Seems like you are no different from those people from the Seven Sword Sect, throwing the face of the Myriad Sage Academy. Mu Yan laughed, mocking Shu Luyao again. Some people have spoken the wrong words. They naturally have to be taught a lesson. It's normal for us to have conflicts while chatting, but what qualifications does he have to interrupt? Jiang Yan impolitely pointed his finger at Qin Wentian as he questioned. I agree with this. Indeed, he should be taught a lesson. After that, we can talk about the matters between you all. Zurius from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor had a look of someone who was watching a good show. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over everyone. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't help but feel a fire burning in his heart after being looked down upon by these people. His gaze swept past them as he spoke. Myriad Sage Academy, Seven Sword Sect, Battle Heaven's immortal manor, Jiang Clan, are all of you very strong? As the sound of his voice faded, everyone turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian as mockery flashed in their eyes. These powers were all at the peak of the Cloud Prefecture. They were naturally very strong. Are you talking nonsense? Jiang Yan coldly laughed. Using strength to bully the weak. Sharon and Mu Yan, none of you dared to challenge me to a decisive battle. You guys have truly broadened my horizons. I even heard that some time ago, your Jiang clan also did the same thing to bully the weak. In the end, you were smacked in the face by someone who killed a disciple of your Jiang clan, Jiang Quang. Hence, you asked the Cloud Tower to issue an arrest warrant. Could it be that just because your Jiang clan didn't announce this matter, everyone in the Cloud Prefecture knows nothing about it? Don't you know that everyone in the outside world is laughing at your Jiang clan? You guys are still acting like tyrants here. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? Qin Wentian's words directly pierced the sore spot of the Jiang clan. Jiang Yan's countenance turned ashen, instantly becoming extremely unsightly to behold. Are you courting death? Jiang Yan icily spoke. Angered from embarrassment? Qin Wentian mocked. He pointed to the people in front of him. All of you think you are extraordinary, insulting me with words as though I'm nothing but an ant in front of you. How lofty and lofty are you guys? I don't even have the qualifications to retaliate after being insulted by you. As Qin Wentian spoke, his eyes were like sharp swords as he stared at those who insulted him. You guys aren't wrong. My cultivation base isn't high. I'm only at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon, unlike you guys who came from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. However, are you guys really that strong? There are also many people around you whose cultivation bases are similar to mine. Tell them to step out and fight me. I alone can deal with all of you combined. Do you believe me? Everyone stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. It was fine if this fellow didn't speak, but the moment he did, he caused everyone to be shocked. Expressions of interest could be seen on their faces as they stared at him. Was he crazy? There were so many disciples from the major powers. Even if they were at the same cultivation level, how many of them could he deal with alone? He actually dared to speak so rudely? How short-sighted, thinking himself infallible. Jiang Yan's expression turned heavy. This man wants to slap our faces alone. What do you guys think we should do? Nian from the Seven Sword Sect coldly spoke. How interesting, to be able to hear such a joke at the Jiangling King's banquet. Shu Luyao from the Myriad Sage Academy stared at Qin Wentian as he mocked. Zurius from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor had a look of disdain on his face. He glanced at the experts from the War Immortal Palace behind him as he laughed. There shouldn't be any pressure to kill him, right? No problem. Behind him, several people nodded their heads in agreement. After which, Zurius glanced at Pei Tianyuan as he laughed. My king, since this man is so confident, why don't we watch a battle during the banquet? We can add some liveliness to the banquet. Chapter 774. Pei Tianyuan turned his gaze onto Zurius as he smiled and nodded. Since everyone is in such a mood, I naturally won't have any objections. The scenery of the drifts now is so beautiful. If there's martial arts to liven things up, it would surely add some vitality to the atmosphere. My king, if blood is spilled during the banquet, please don't blame me. Zurius spoke again. Pei Tianyuan casually waved his hands. How can the competition of the martial path be limited to sparring? Since we want to tread the path of martial arts, we should have the spirit to see through life and death. As long as none of you have any objections, there's no need to ask me. I'm only a spectator. Today, all of you shall take the lead. My king is truly a forthright man. Many thanks for granting my wish. Zurius laughed. An instant later, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. He then turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian. Since you are so arrogant and don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth, I won't bully you. The War Immortal Palace is a power under my Battle Heaven's immortal manor, and there are 3 third-level ascendants behind me. They are sufficient to let you understand the meaning of the word level. There's no need for him to understand. Just kill him directly. His arrogant words are extremely piercing to the ears, causing people to feel extremely unhappy. Nyan's cold eyes flickered with killing intent as she stared at Qin Wentian. It was one thing if she was provoked by Sharon's words, but a mere unknown character actually dared to use such words to humiliate her? How could her killing intent not soar up into the skies? She wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Wentian. If we can cripple him, it's fine even if we don't kill him. Let him know how to conduct himself in the future, lest he spits out such arrogant words in the future. Xu Luyao coldly spoke. That's not bad. Jiang Yin wrapped his fingers on the table, his eyes flashing with mockery. The gaze he used to look at Qin Wentian was like he was looking at a dead man. Do you all want me dead so badly? Qin Wentian's eyes were sharp. Sharon, who was at the side, had a calm expression on his face. He believed that for those who could sound the 9 immortality bells, there wouldn't be any problems in a battle between cultivators at the same level. In addition, no one knew that Qin Wentian was able to sound the 9 immortality bells. Evidently, he wasn't a high-profile character. Since he dared to say such words, he would definitely be able to do it. Hence, Sharon merely lifted his wine cup and sipped a mouthful as a smile appeared on his face. Mu Yen sat there peacefully. The ghost saber Mu Yen had always been extremely interested in combat. He believed that since Sharon had such a relationship with Qin Wentian, there must be something extraordinary about him. And at this moment, the 3 third-level ascendants from the War Immortal Palace already stood in the empty space in the center of the banquet hall. Although this space was a little too narrow for combat, if one controlled it well, it would still be sufficient to support an entire battle. In addition, the strength of the people on both sides were all extremely powerful. Even if the aftershocks from their attacks were too strong, they wouldn't be affected and could easily defend against it. Scram the hell out. One of them stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly spoke. An intense killing intent gushed forth from him as a bloody stench permeated the air. Qin Wentian continued to sit there, quietly lifting his wine cup and sipping a small mouthful. He inclined his head and stared at the 3 before him as he coldly spoke. I didn't come here to participate in this banquet to be toyed with like a monkey. My battles would never be used for the entertainment of others. That would be an insult to my martial path. Puchi. A mocking laughter rang out. Nifeng's eyes were filled with a mocking smile as she spoke. Earlier you spoke so passionately, yet now you're using such a reason to avoid a battle. Inviting someone like you to attend this banquet together with me is simply a humiliation to me. As the sound of her voice faded, many in the crowd laughed out loud. This person was truly too ridiculous. However, as their laughter rang out, they only saw Qin Wentian still sitting there. His eyes swept over as a cold light erupted forth. Lifting his palms, astral light flashed, incomparably resplendent. Terrifying runic lights shone from his palms, resembling a million runes. Rumble. A thunderous sound rang out, only to see Qin Wentian's palm imprint explosively blasting out, descending from the heavens, directly smashing towards the three ascendants. The gigantic palm imprint was akin to a shooting star, capable of plucking the moon and stars from the sky. It was as fast as lightning, carrying with it a suffocating destructive might. The countenances of the three ascendants were filled with terror. They only felt a constellation slamming down on them. Gathering all their strength, they raised their palms to defend, yet rumbling sounds rang out. In just an instant, the bodies of the three ascendants were directly crushed into dust. Astral light shone resplendently, permeating the air. However, the bodies of the three ascendants were directly destroyed, transforming into dust. The laughter earlier abruptly ceased. Only now did Qin Wentian slowly put down the wine cup in his left hand, emitting a light sound that was exceptionally clear in this silent space. The smile on Nifeng's face stiffened. He didn't dare to fight? Even before the sound of her mocking laughter faded, Qin Wentian already used such a method to reply to her. What else could be more resounding than such a slap to the face? Not only for Nifeng, even those who mocked Qin Wentian felt as though they were ruthlessly slapped on the face. They felt extremely sullen, and had no way to swallow this anger. Is this the capital that your Battle Heaven's immortal manor is so proud of? What a joke! Qin Wentian calmly spoke after putting down his wine cup. His voice wasn't loud, but it was like another slap to the face of Zurius, who had been laughing and watching the show earlier. Earlier, when Zurius and the Jiangling King spoke, it was as though Qin Wentian was already in their bag, and could be killed easily. Qin Wentian could only be a clown in this banquet, toyed with by them. But in the blink of an eye, Qin Wentian used the most domineering method to tell them that he didn't even need to stand up to kill these people from the major powers. He couldn't be bothered to become a clown, using martial arts to liven things up. His martial path wasn't used to put on a show, it was used to slap faces. Zurius choked on his breath. He didn't say anything. He didn't know how he should reply to Qin Wentian's arrogant words. The truth was right before his eyes. How could he refute it? The people from the War Immortal Palace under his Battle Heaven's immortal manor couldn't even withstand a single strike, directly killed until not even dregs remained. A bunch of arrogant people who think they're infallible. How many of them can truly explore the glorious path to immortality? You guys are all short-sighted. Qin Wentian continued. After which, he turned his gaze onto the Jiangling King, Pei Tianyuan as he spoke. Jiangling King, Junior isn't welcome here. I won't stay any longer and invite a snub. Farewell. After speaking, Qin Wentian stood up and retreated. This Jiangling King Pei Tianyuan favored the disciples from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture, and was extremely polite to them. But for him, Qin Wentian, he was an exception. Such an atmosphere wasn't suitable for him. Although the scenery here was beautiful, and there was also the story of the Driftsnow Master and Immortal Jade, the people here have long changed. You want to leave just like that after killing my men? At this moment, a cold voice rang out, causing Qin Wentian to start. He turned his head back and stared at Zurius as he frowned. His eyes flashed with mockery. It's fine if people from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor are useless, but to think that they can actually be so shameless to such an extent. My horizons have truly been broadened. My horizons have also been broadened. Ghost Saber Muyen laughed. Zurius, earlier you ordered your subordinates to kill Qin Wentian. Everyone here saw it clearly. Now that your subordinates were killed because their strength was inferior, aren't you insulting the Battle Heaven's immortal manor a little too much by saying such words? Sharon mocked, filled with disdain for Zurius's character. I don't care about that. I only know that if you dare to kill someone from my Battle Heaven's immortal manor, you shall leave your life behind. Zurius's voice was extremely domineering as a terrifying battle intent gushed forth from him. The experts from the War Immortal Palace behind him all released their auras, wanting to kill Qin Wentian here and now. If they allowed Qin Wentian to leave here alive today, that would truly be a humiliation to the Battle Heaven's immortal palace. Since he killed their people, he shall leave his life behind. Others would only remember the strength of their Battle Heaven's immortal palace, and not the fact that they didn't follow the rules. In this world of cultivation, There were no rules to speak of. Whoever was stronger would be able to dictate the rules. You spoke rudely and insulted me. Do you think you can just leave like that? At this moment, Nyan also spoke. The experts from the Seven Sword sect all stood up as sword intent gushed forth from them, permeating the air. A moment later, everyone felt a stifling pressure boring down on them. You guys are truly shameless. Peiyu swept her gaze over to these people as she mocked. Peiyu, there's no place for you to speak. Get over here. Pei Xiao, who was sitting beside Jiang Yan, berated. After that, Peiyu stared at Pei Xiao, her beautiful eyes flashing with stubbornness. Peiyu, step down and come over to my side. At this moment, the Jiangling king Pei Tianyuan also spoke. His tone contained a hint of imposingness. Evidently, he didn't want Peiyu to participate in this battle. Peiyu stared at Pei Tianyuan. Her eyes were as resolute as ever. She actually stubbornly shook her head, causing Pei Tianyuan's countenance to turn cold as he spoke. Impudent. As the sound of his voice faded, the atmosphere grew colder. Peiyu stared at Pei Tianyuan as she spoke. Jiangling King, you should be the one in charge of this matter. Pei Tianyuan's gaze towards Peiyu was filled with unfriendliness, as though he was very disappointed. Beside Pei Tianyuan, someone spoke. Miss Peiyu, you have to understand a logic. When people at the same level compete against each other, there might not be any problems. As long as there isn't a life and death battle, everything can be resolved. Enemies can also help you improve. However, for people at different levels, there are some things that cannot be done. The person who spoke was also a disciple from a major power in the Cloud Prefecture. His name was Han Dongjiang, a disciple of the Nine Mountain Immortal Court. Although his words weren't pleasant to the ears, they were the truth. For example, Sharon and Jiang Yan might be enemies, but they would also help each other and wouldn't kill each other. However, things were different for Qin Wentian because everyone felt that he was on a different level compared to Jiang Yan and the others. He didn't have the qualifications to be their opponent, yet he still dared to be so arrogant and rude. In that case, what awaited him was only doomsday. Even if Sharon wanted to protect him, it would be extremely difficult. Most probably, these people wouldn't spare Qin Wentian. As for the Jiangling king Pei Tianyuan, he couldn't be bothered with such matters. If these people wanted to deal with Sharon at his banquet, he would object. But if they wanted to deal with Qin Wentian, he naturally wouldn't interfere. Chapter 775. Qin Wentian stared at Han Dongjiang, Jiang Yan and the others as his calm eyes flickered with a faint coldness. Miss Peiyu, there's no need to bother with these people. You can go on your own. Qin Wentian first spoke to Peiyu. After that, he glanced at Pei Tianyuan as he spoke. Although this place has beautiful scenery and beautiful wine, as well as beautiful legends, these people are a total spoilsport. Since we walk different paths, we can't make plans together. Farewell. After speaking, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he sped through the air with lightning speed. Want to leave? Zurius from the battle heaven's immortal manor's countenance turned cold as his killing intent surged forth. He lifted his fist and punched out in the air. A moment later, a fearsome war beast appeared, howling in the air as it lunged towards Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, transforming into numerous afterimages as he sped through the air at the speed of light. That terrifying attack slammed into the air, causing the earth to tremble. Zurius narrowed his eyes, and upon seeing that Qin Wentian didn't seem to have any intentions of slowing down, he coldly snorted as he soared through the air, chasing after Qin Wentian. A terrifying aura gushed forth from him, and the powerful rebound force caused the earth to rumble with rumbling sounds. Phoenix Nyan's eyes flickered with a cold light. Stepping out, her sword was unsheathed as she soared into the air, chasing after Qin Wentian. You think you can escape? Jiang Yan, Xu Lu Yao and the others all soared into the air. In the blink of an eye, only less than half of the participants remained. This scene caused expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. The banquet was hosted by the Jiangling king, but who would have thought that there would be such conflicts? The banquet has just started, and there were already conflicts. However, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon. Most probably it wouldn't take too long before those people returned to the banquet. Just like what Han Dongjiang has said, if Qin Wentian was a disciple of the Wondergate Immortal Manor, and had the same background as Sharon, he could easily clash head-on with these people. It wouldn't matter even if he fought. But he had no background, and yet he still didn't know when to retreat. Wasn't that simply courting death? He could only blame himself for not knowing when to restrain himself. In the immortal realms, no matter how outstanding his talent was, he would still die prematurely. Such matters were commonplace in the immortal realms. Pei Tianyuan had seen many of them, and the number of fallen geniuses he had seen before was countless. He had a clear understanding of the rules of the immortal realms, only to see that at this moment, Pei Tianyuan's expression was extremely calm. He casually lifted his wine cup and toasted to Ji Kong of the Cloud Tower Sacred Sect. The two of them toasted each other, and after that, Pei Tianyuan turned to the others and raised his cup with a smile. Just a small matter. Let's not disturb everyone's mood. Let us toast first and chat after they return. Jiangling King is too polite. Many thanks to Jiangling King as well as Tower Lord Ji Kong for your hospitality. Everyone politely spoke, expressing their respect. Only Pei Yu, who was at the side, was so angry that her countenance turned pale. At this moment, Qin Wentian was flying in the air. The snowy scenery below was extremely beautiful, like a celestial realm in the mortal world. Sadly, Qin Wentian basically didn't have the mood to admire the scenery. His speed was as fast as lightning. Stepping on his divine weapon, he transformed into a beam of light that soared through the air, directly passing through the Driftsnow and in a short instant, heading straight for the Driftsnow city. Behind him, the majestic army followed closely behind Qin Wentian. The expressions of these people were cold and unkind. All of them took out their divine weapons and were as fast as lightning, moving at an inconceivably fast speed. The majority of these experts were descendants of famous sects and were extremely powerful with terrifying speed. Sharon, we temporarily won't bicker with you today. You don't have to care about this matter anymore. Shu Luyao stared at Sharon, who was beside him, following closely behind. His speed was actually the fastest among them. Sharon coldly glanced at Shu Luyao as a hint of disdain could be seen on his face. Ghost Saber Mu Yan also followed behind. He unhurriedly followed behind them with his hands clasped behind his back. Nobody knew what he was thinking in his heart. Other than the geniuses, their subordinates all followed closely behind, unwilling to let them go. Below the Driftsnow city, there would occasionally be people who inclined their heads and stared at the sky only to see the rumbling sounds of explosions echoing through the air, causing their hearts to tremble. Where were these people from? What was happening? Many cultivators stepped out and followed the crowd. They wanted to see what was going on. The number of people grew larger and larger. Not too long after, the sky was filled with a majestic sight. However, in reality, not too long after Qin Wentian left the Driftsnow Inn, their speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the location where the 9 immortality bells were located. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he directly stood in front of the 9 immortality bells, bathing in boundless runic light. His body halted in the air as numerous experts chased after him. The whistling sounds of the wind rang out unceasingly, and in the blink of an eye, the path ahead of Qin Wentian was filled with experts. Do you think you can survive today? Nian's cold and arrogant eyes stared at Qin Wentian. Her voice was still filled with arrogance as sword chi gushed forth from her. Those cold eyes of hers already treated Qin Wentian as a dead man. Sharon appeared beside Qin Wentian. He who stood in the air was similarly bathed in runic light. He stared at Nian and spoke with cold arrogance. Do you dare to touch him today? Nian's countenance was incomparably cold as she stared at Sharon. This bastard was actually so protective of Qin Wentian. Today, I will definitely make a move against him. Not only that, I will take his life as well. Zurius from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor coldly spoke. The experts behind them were as many as the clouds. That's what I wanted to say as well. Shu Luyao interjected. Jiang Yin coldly laughed. He stared at Sharon. Sharon, you won't be able to block them. Just retreat or you might be injured. Brother Sharon, since this is their own grudge, just let them settle it themselves. Why must you participate in this? Only to hear Pei Xiao, who had just arrived, also trying to persuade Chiron, his words causing Chiron's eyes to flicker. He stared at Pei Xiao and coldly spoke, impudent. As someone from the King Manor, you should be neutral by right. When did Brother Tianwen offend your King Manor? If you want to fawn over these people, wouldn't you, Pei Xiao, be looked down upon by others? Brother Chiron, I'm only advising you with kind words. Pei Xiao's countenance was ice-cold. He was a heaven chosen from the King Manor, and his strength was extremely powerful. It was fine if Chiron didn't give him face, but he even dared to speak such arrogant words. Are you trying to bully me with numbers? Ghost Saber Mu Yen slowly walked over, standing beside Chiron. This caused the countenances of the other experts to turn cold as they stared at Chiron and Mu Yen. Qin Wentian didn't pose any threat at all. In their eyes, Qin Wentian was already a prey in the bag. They could kill him casually. But Mu Yen and Chiron were different. The two of them were extremely powerful and had powerful backgrounds. They weren't so easy to deal with. Chiron, Mu Yen, I appreciate your kind intentions. But since they want to deal with me so much, just let them come. Qin Wentian emotionlessly spoke, his words causing Chiron and Mu Yen to start. After that, an expression of interest appeared on Mu Yan's face as he surveyed Qin Wentian. He then smiled. Fine, since you put it this way, I, Mu Yen, won't interfere. Chiron cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian before turning his gaze onto the 9 immortality bells. He then smiled. Okay, I believe Brother Tianwen. After speaking, Chiron also retreated to the side. The two of them became spectators, leaving only Qin Wentian to face off against the geniuses. Not only that, each and every one of them was stronger than him. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to care at all. His gaze swept over the crowd as a cold light flickered in his eyes. He then spoke. A bunch of arrogant fellows, only knowing how to bully the weak and think that they are a tier higher than others. Yet they don't know how pathetic they are. All of you proclaim yourselves to be geniuses, lofty and lofty. But in my eyes, all of you are merely a bunch of useless trash. What qualifications do you have to be so arrogant here? If I had your cultivation base, I would be able to kill all of you with a wave of my hand. How brazen! The countenances of everyone turned extremely cold when they heard Qin Wentian's arrogant words. Nian couldn't help but to take a step out, her eyes gleaming with cold sword light. With a wave of her hands, the 7 swords instantly lined up together, as though there were 7 swords vibrating at the same time. Buzzing sounds rang out as the 7 swords whistled in unison, shooting out explosively. Every single sword strike contained a terrifying might, and each sword strike was stronger than the one before it. When the first sword shot towards Qin Wentian already felt a towering sword wave gushing over. With an intention of his will, boundless runic light danced in the air, enveloping him. The runic inscriptions in the air circulated rapidly, transforming into a terrifying palm imprint. Qin Wentian lifted his palm and blasted it out. At the same time, the sword arrived. With a thunderous boom, the sword and the palm imprint collided, causing the entire space to tremble. However, the sword had no way to penetrate through the palm imprint. Yet the second sword arrived, and it was yet another incomparably intense attack that shook the heavens and earth. The third and fourth swords slashed out consecutively, their might shaking the heavens. Although Nian was cold and arrogant, she was truly powerful. However, boundless runic inscriptions circulated around Qin Wentian, transforming into a heavenly rampart that blocked in front of him. No matter how the heavens and earth crumbled, the heavenly rampart wouldn't break. The 7 swords slammed down, causing the entire space to tremble. With a cracking sound, the heavenly rampart shattered apart. Qin Wentian still stood with his hands clasped behind his back, standing before the 9 immortality bells, staring at Nian with arrogance in his eyes. Is your strength only at this level? I can easily activate my runic inscriptions and stand in an invincible position. You want to kill me? How can you do that? Qin Wentian arrogantly spoke, his voice trembling. The countenances of Nian and the others stiffened as they stared at Qin Wentian. This fellow could actually control the runic inscriptions of the 9 immortality bells to attack? Was his attainment in this aspect so high? You think that you can be high and mighty just because you joined a power? Although you can fly higher, you are nothing more than a swallow and sparrow, only daring to stand shoulder to shoulder with those who fly lower. How would you know the ambitions of a great rock? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. Boundless runic inscriptions flashed once more, enveloping Qin Wentian. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, exuding incomparable arrogance, resembling a god of war. He stared ahead. All of you can come at me together. Chapter 776. In the Heavenly Talisman Treasure Tome, runic inscriptions were the foundation of one's strength, something that could activate the laws of heaven and earth. Qin Wentian had comprehended the innate treasure tome, and in addition to his own attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions, he was able to borrow the power of the millions of runic inscriptions to easily activate the laws of heaven and earth. In addition, Qin Wentian had already formed an innate connection with the 9 immortality bells, and could use its energy to attack. In front of the 9 immortality bells, it was Qin Wentian's battlefield. How could he be afraid of these people? Even if they all attacked together, Qin Wentian still had the confidence to defeat them easily. Qin Wentian's arrogance was built upon his immense self-confidence. When his eyes swept over, the countenances of the geniuses all turned incredibly unsightly to behold. The killing intent in their eyes grew even more intense. Initially, they thought that they were already arrogant enough. Yet they didn't expect that there would be someone even more brazen than them. Before this, Qin Wentian was still extremely low profile and reserved. But now he was completely unleashing his full potential. There was no limit to his arrogance. He truly didn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian said that they were swallows and sparrows, only daring to stand shoulder to shoulder with low-flying humans. But he, Qin Wentian, was a Kuanping with the ambition to soar through the heavens. The two of them couldn't even stand shoulder to shoulder with each other. What sort of characters were they? They were the elites of the strongest major powers in the Cloud Prefecture. Yet now, they were being looked down upon in such a manner. However, it seemed that Qin Wentian also had his own outstanding points. He could borrow the power of the runic inscriptions to launch an attack, defending against Nian's 7 swords. His combat prowess was truly impressive. Damn. Nian's arrogance was as cold as ever. She didn't bother about Qin Wentian and continued forward. With a wave of her palms, astral light flashed as a celestial phenomenon manifested in the air. Behind her, 7 terrifying swords manifested, and each of them directly pierced through the air, hovering in the air. Each sword radiated boundless sword qi, containing a supreme killing might. Qin Wentian inclined his head. His palms danced as a look of disdain flickered in his eyes. In just an instant, the boundless runic light converged into a terrifying river of sword qi, gushing forth with killing might. Kill, kill. Nian roared, exuding a terrifying killing intent. Above her constellation, there were a total of 49 swords, all of them slashing out, causing streams of light to appear in the air. It was as though flames were about to be ignited, incomparably resplendent. Humph! Qin Wentian snorted. The long river of swordsmanship converged, and a true river of swordsmanship appeared in the void. With a crashing sound, it swept towards the void. Everywhere it passed, everything would be destroyed. The long river of sword might collided with Nian's constellation, destroying everything in its path. The crowd only saw the resplendent river of sword might engulfing everything, even directly penetrating through Nian's constellation. Nian groaned in misery as her countenance turned pale as her body trembled violently. The other experts from the 7 Sword sect all rushed forward when they saw that the situation wasn't right. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian lifted his palms again. Blazing runic light transformed into palm imprints that directly blasted out, slamming into Nian's body. With a thunderous boom, Nian's body was directly flung through the air. Her robes were torn apart as she coughed out fresh blood, directly slamming into the ground. His comprehension of runic inscriptions is actually so high. Zurius and the others stared at Qin Wentian. This person wasn't so easy to deal with. Although Nian's strength couldn't be compared to them, the disparity wasn't too great. However, Qin Wentian didn't spend too much effort to defeat Nian. He merely borrowed the power of runic inscriptions effortlessly. One could only say that Qin Wentian's attainments in the Tao of runic inscriptions were extremely high. He was able to borrow the power of runic inscriptions to do battle, transforming them into his own power. So it turns out that your arrogance is because you borrowed the power of external sources. If you only relied on your own strength, I would be able to suppress you with a single finger. Killing you is as easy as flipping my palm. Yet you still dare to brag that you are a Kuanping? Zurius's battle intent surged forth. Upon hearing his words, Qin Wentian laughed uproariously. He pointed to Zurius and spoke. Heavens chosen from the battle, heaven's immortal manner? Such shameless words actually came out of your mouth? A group of 7th level and 8th level ascendants came here to deal with me, and you want me to fight against them with my cultivation base at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon? Can you be any more shameless? My cultivation base doesn't need to be higher than yours. As long as we are at the same level, I can kill you with a single finger. These words are truly shameless. Ghost Saber Mu Yen, who was at the side, laughed. The mocking smile on his face was exceedingly thick. Fight or not? A bunch of so-called geniuses. If you don't dare to fight, just scram. From now onwards, none of you are allowed to get close to the 9 immortality bells. I will kill whoever dares to get close. Scram as far away as you can. Qin Wentian pointed his finger at the geniuses ahead, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Who was this man exactly? He was truly incomparably arrogant, as though he didn't place these geniuses in his eyes at all. Boom. Zurius's battle intent towered up into the sky. He simply couldn't endure such humiliation. Towering battle might gushed forth from him as he roared in rage and blasted out with his palms. It was as though a terrifying demonic beast had appeared before Qin Wentian, its baleful aura sweeping across the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian seemed to have long been prepared for this. His palms trembled as runic inscriptions flashed. Millions of runes circulated around his body, causing his body to be translucent and translucent, exuding a dignified aura, holy and inviolable. When the tyrannical attacks blasted into him, a cracking sound rang out as the runic light circulating around his body shattered. The armor formed from the runic light actually shattered. Boom. At the instant Zurius launched his attack, he had already stepped out. A boundless baleful aura radiated from him, and with a howl of rage, he blasted out with both his fists, causing the roars of a myriad of demonic beasts to echo out, causing the heavens and earth to lose their colors. It was as though numerous demonic beasts had transformed into demonic war immortals, their bodies incomparably gigantic as they lunged towards Qin Wentian, wanting to devour Qin Wentian with a single bite. At the same time, the other experts also stepped out, moving to the left and right of Zurius as their auras gushed forth, aiming for Qin Wentian. In fact, Pei Xiao from the Jiangling King Manor also acted, wanting to destroy Qin Wentian in an instant. He wanted to see how Qin Wentian would be able to borrow the power of the runic inscriptions. Qin Wentian's eyes were like sharp swords, sweeping over everyone, penetrating their hearts. With an intention of his will, he communicated with the 9 immortality bells. Kill! A thunderous roar rang out, but before anyone could even attack, the bell chimes abruptly rang out. Boom! The minds of everyone trembled violently. The chimes of the 9 immortality bells seemed to contain a terrifying demonic power, directly ringing out in their minds. I told you guys to scram. Qin Wentian roared in rage as a star-seizing palm imprint blasted out, causing the sky to change color. Boom boom boom. The bell chimes shook the heavens and earth, wanting to shatter the souls of those who heard it. Those palm imprints blasted out together with the chimes. Even the gigantic ancient demon was slain. Zurius had no way to advance any further. His body trembled violently from the impact. Upon seeing the incoming palm imprints, he took out a fearsome divine weapon as a supreme battle intent enveloped him. With a deafening boom, Zurius was forced back over 10,000 meters. The other experts were also defending against Qin Wentian's attacks. They all took out their divine weapons, but the chimes of the 9 immortality bells rang out unceasingly. In such a situation, they had no way to fight and could only protect themselves. Qin Wentian stepped out, directly trampling on their hearts. An incomparably heavy pressure bore down on them, akin to the pressure from the 9 immortality bells. Qin Wentian seemed to represent the will of the 9 immortality bells. Stretching out his palms, Qin Wentian squeezed out. Momentarily, everyone felt their hearts tightening as the bell chimes rang out once more. Pei Xiao and the others all turned pale as they coughed out fresh blood. Borrowing the power of their divine weapons, they retreated with explosive speed, distancing themselves from the 9 immortality bells and Qin Wentian. Nian, who was already injured, stood up from the ground, coughed out fresh blood after being struck a few more times. Her countenance was completely drained of color, and she could only struggle to flee. Earlier, she was still incomparably cold and arrogant, but now, she was in such a sorry state. Why are you still not scramming? Qin Wentian's voice rang out as he took another step forward. Momentarily, the experts present all retreated, like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow. However, Qin Wentian halted after taking a single step. He stood at his original location, his eyes filled with mockery as he stared at the fleeing geniuses in front of him. Those experts glanced at the spectators only to see that everyone was staring at them with mocking expressions on their faces. This bunch of geniuses had truly lost face today. They were frightened to such an extent by a single step from Qin Wentian. Yet they still dared to chase after others. How ridiculous! The gazes of the crowd caused these geniuses to feel so ashamed that they couldn't even show their faces. Their eyes were filled with incomparable rage as they stared at Qin Wentian, who was still standing beside the 9 immortality bells. Merely a bunch of trash. Most probably you can only spout nonsense. What capabilities do you have? Qin Wentian's eyes swept over them one by one. Borrowing the prestige of the ancestors to flaunt your might. Throwing away all the face of your elders. If I were you guys, I would rather commit suicide right here and now, not bringing shame to our sect. Shut up. Zurius howled. Qin Wentian turned his eyes over, directly staring at him. His eyes were like sharp swords, staring straight at him as though he wanted to see through him. After that, Qin Wentian exuded boundless runic light as he walked towards Zurius step by step. 1 step, 2 steps. Zurius didn't move, facing Qin Wentian head-on. But as Qin Wentian got closer and closer, the look in his eyes changed. You are too arrogant. Only death awaits you. Zurius threatened. Qin Wentian ignored him and continued walking forward. Zurius howled in rage as he turned and retreated, not daring to allow Qin Wentian to get any closer. The other geniuses all retreated when they saw Qin Wentian's gaze sweeping over them. It was like they were avoiding a god of plague. They were all terrified of Qin Wentian. How pathetic. A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stared at the people before him. Scram. I've already said that none of you are allowed to appear before the 9 immortality bells. If any of you trash dares to approach, I will kill you all without mercy. Chapter 777. Qin Wentian was bathed in boundless runic light. It was as though he was clad in runic armor, unexcelled in the world. Every word he spat out caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. At this moment, that ordinary-looking young man radiated a radiance that was even more dazzling compared to the geniuses of the various major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. It was as though he was the main character here. As for the others, scram, they are not allowed to get close to the 9 immortality bells. Those who disobey shall be killed without mercy. Most probably, even the Jiangling king of the Jiangling country wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Yet this mere third-level ascendant actually dared to do so. Not only that, the countenances of those geniuses turned ashen. They had nothing to say in response. Being trampled on and defeated in such a domineering manner. Even if they tried to retort, it would be useless. It's you. You killed Xianzhu. At this moment, a voice of shock rang out. The female from the Purple Flame sect earlier stared at Qin Wentian. At this moment, she could already confirm that Xianzhu was definitely killed by Qin Wentian. It was precisely that bell chime that caused Xianzhu's death. Bell chime. That bell chime was caused by you. Xianzhu died in your hands. You borrowed the might of the bell chimes to sneak attack and kill Xianzhu. The eyes of that female seemed to be spewing flames as she stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's gaze swept over. His sharp and cold eyes swept past the female. And in an instant, that female only felt a chill running down her spine. Who the hell does he think he is? Do I need to sneak attack to kill him? These so-called geniuses can't even withstand a single strike. Your Xianzhu is like an ant. Yet you still flattered those from the Seven Sword sect. How ridiculous, killing him with a single gaze. How pathetic. Qin Wentian's expression was calm. His hands were still behind his back as he stared at the woman from the Purple Flame sect. I originally didn't want to cause trouble. Otherwise, how could you stand here and speak? But now, you still dare to pester me endlessly. Do you want to die? As soon as the word die was uttered, the woman trembled all over. Qin Wentian's eyes seemed to contain a sharp aura that could pierce through people. Her body trembled, her lips trembled, and she couldn't utter a word. She didn't dare to continue speaking and only let out a low, cold snort. Everyone immediately understood that this woman was already terrified. Under Qin Wentian's power, she was so scared that she didn't even dare to speak. Right now, Qin Wentian was incomparably domineering. Even for the disciples from the peak powers of the Cloud Prefecture, he didn't care about them at all. In fact, no one even doubted his determination to kill them. Also, the Purple Flame sect was a major power of the Jiangling country. He has already killed Xianzhu before. It wouldn't matter even if he killed one more. Hence, it was only normal that this woman didn't dare to antagonize him. If not, if this young man was angered, this woman would surely die. So that earlier chime of the 9 immortality bells that was even louder than Sharon's, was caused by him. From afar someone spoke, staring at Qin Wentian with bewilderment. This young man was extraordinary. It was just that he had been keeping a low profile earlier. Who would have thought that all these disciples from the major powers would look down on him, putting no one in their eyes and even wanting to kill him? This was the reason why this young man was so arrogant. Truly powerful. Initially, everyone guessed that it was the 9 immortality bells manifesting their own spirit. But who would have thought that he was the one who caused the chime to ring out? How powerful, surpassing Sharon and accomplishing something none of these geniuses from the major powers were able to do. Those geniuses looked down on this young man. Yet they didn't know that he was only at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon. Yet he could already accomplish things they couldn't. Especially for that Jiang Yan from the Jiang clan, he's proficient in weaponsmithing, and is known as the holy ground for weaponsmithing in the Cloud Prefecture. His attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions are naturally extremely high. However, this Jiang Yan has no way to cause the chime to ring out. From afar, someone involuntarily commented. However, the ears of the people here were extremely sharp. They only saw Jiang Yan's countenance turning ashen. Yet he had nothing to say. The people behind him all turned their gazes over coldly, their gazes as sharp as swords. How shameful. Those from the other major powers were still fine, but for this Jiang Yan, he was a genius from a holy ground for weaponsmithing in the Cloud Prefecture. Not long ago, he was still unexcelled in this world. He was the descendant of the legendary character Jiang Chao, but in terms of weaponsmithing, it was still understandable that he couldn't be compared to Sharon from the Wondergate Immortal Manor. But to have such a disparity in terms of weaponsmithing by someone with such a low cultivation base, this was truly shameful. Especially when Jiang Yan had always been incomparably arrogant. Looking down on that young man, this was simply smacking his face. Jiang Yan could already sense several gazes landing on him. Momentarily, his face was burning hot, feeling extremely unbearable. You knew long ago? Mu Yan, who stood at the side, stared at Sharon as he directly asked. Before this I already guessed that it was Brother Tianwen. Brother Tianwen is clearly stronger than me, but from the looks of this battle, it seems that he isn't just slightly stronger than me. In fact, there's quite a huge disparity between us. This truly makes me feel ashamed. Sharon didn't mind at all. It was because he knew that Qin Wentian was able to ring the 9 immortality bell. Hence he decided to befriend Qin Wentian. This was something very natural. Qin Wentian had something that attracted him, hence the two of them were able to become good friends. If not, Sharon wouldn't even be acquainted with Qin Wentian. How could it be possible that they became good friends just by exchanging a glance? Haha, in this aspect, you might be inferior to others. But at the very least, you are much stronger than Jiang Yan. Mu Yan laughed, not bothering to mask his voice, causing Jiang Yan to feel a burning sensation as though he was slapped on the face. Jiang Yan. Sharon intentionally turned his gaze over to Jiang Yan as a mocking expression could be seen on his face. He then emotionlessly spoke. Not long ago, Jiang Yan was still trying to humiliate Brother Tianwen. But now, no matter how I look at it, it's nothing but a joke. He was simply courting his own humiliation. Sharon, shut up. Jiang Yan roared. Right now, he was already extremely embarrassed. Yet Sharon still wasn't willing to spare him. What? Don't you want others to talk about what you did? Earlier, weren't you very arrogant? Aren't you a descendant of the sacred ground of the Cloud Prefecture, the Jiang clan? Others don't have the qualifications to converse with you, because you aren't on the same level as them. In fact, if you speak too much, you might even die. But now Brother Tianwen is standing there, yet you don't even have the courage to step forward. If I were you, I would immediately return to my clan and enter closed-door seclusion. If I don't break through, I would never come out again. If not, I would only be a disgrace to my clan. Sharon crossed his arms before his chest as he mocked, causing Jiang Yan's body to tremble from anger. Enough, it's time for you guys to leave. Staying here would only make things more embarrassing. Mu Yan coldly spoke. Zurius didn't dare to do so. He stared at Qin Wentian as he spoke. You borrowed the might of the 9 immortality bells and have the strength to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. However, external forces are still external forces. Unless you choose to remain in front of the 9 immortality bells forever, all of us will definitely take your life. As the sound of his voice faded, Zurius turned and departed, not even pausing for a moment. The 9 immortality bells have manifested their spirit. The Driftsnow city is filled with geniuses. You are still too naive. Shu Liao also spoke before he departed as well. Nian's injuries were the heaviest. Her gaze was as sharp as swords as she stared at Qin Wentian as she departed with reluctance in her heart. Jiang Yan, Pei Xiao and the others also departed, but their hatred for Qin Wentian grew even stronger. In the blink of an eye, the geniuses from the various powers all departed. The atmosphere in front of the 9 immortality bells finally quieted down. The gazes of the spectators were all different when they stared at Qin Wentian. This man had formed an innate connection with the 9 immortality bells, and the chimes he created surpassed Sharon. Nobody knew if he would be able to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bells. Brother Tianwen awesome. Sharon and Mu Yan walked over, only to see Sharon flashing a thumbs up to Qin Wentian as admiration could be seen in his eyes. Being able to control runes at will, this level of attainment far surpassed him. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was at least 5 years ahead of him. Even if he used another 5 to 10 years, he might not be able to catch up to Qin Wentian. He is indeed powerful, but he has offended too many people. Mu Yan added. There's no solution to it. Earlier at the banquet, you guys have already seen how arrogant these people are. If I don't want to offend them, I can only do so if I give my life to them. Qin Wentian joked. Haha, but it's no big deal. You can borrow the might of the 9 immortality bells. There's no need for you to fear them. And as for these geniuses encountering setbacks outside, let's see if they have the face to seek help from their clans or sections. If they do so, their clans or sects would definitely look down on them. You just have to be careful. If you leave the 9 immortality bells, do your best to stick together with us. Mu Yan kindly reminded. Understood. I will continue to comprehend this 9 immortality bells before heading to the other 8. Qin Wentian smiled. We will accompany you then. Although you can borrow the power of the 9 immortality bells to battle, it's inevitable that these people would use some underhanded methods to deal with you. Although Sharon was a wanton and unrestrained person, he also had a cautious side to him. Qin Wentian nodded lightly. He didn't reject Sharon's good intentions. At the Driftsnow, the banquet was still going on. Snowflakes drifted down, dancing in the wind, creating a scene that was incomparably beautiful. Everyone chatted merrily, raising their cups and drinking to their heart's content. Only Pei Yu sat behind Pei Tianyuan with her head drooped, looking extremely depressed. It's about time for those fellows to return. A mere third-level ascendant, actually left for such a long period of time. A person spoke in a low voice. Pei Tianyuan smiled. They should be back soon. That little fellow doesn't know what's good for him. However, Sharon and Mu Yan are extremely loyal and would definitely act to obstruct him. Hence, it's only natural that they would take a longer time. These juniors always love to fight. In truth, it's not a big deal. The Driftsnow City Lord shook his head as he laughed. Although it's not a big deal, it's just that young man truly doesn't know what's good for him and doesn't know his own status. For such a character, even if his talent isn't weak, he would still die prematurely. The Cloud in Lord Jikong casually spoke, as though Qin Wentian was someone who didn't know what was good for him. Hence he deserved to be killed. Indeed. Pei Tianyuan nodded. Pei Yu, who was at the back, felt somewhat angry. She inclined her head. Her countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. However, she didn't have the qualifications to speak here. They have returned. At this moment, Pei Tianyuan inclined his head and stared at the horizons only to see a spatial fluctuation. An instant later, whistling sounds could be heard as several figures appeared in the air. These were none other than the geniuses who had left earlier. MHM. At this moment, Pei Tianyuan's brows twitched as though he didn't understand. Something seemed to be wrong. Those geniuses' robes were in disarray, and they seemed to be in a sorry state. As for Nyan from the Seven Sword sect, her aura was fluctuating violently as though she was heavily injured. Could it be that Sharon and Mu Yan were so powerful? The two of them actually helped that young man to fight against so many geniuses. Chapter 778. The people at the banquet all discovered something strange. Not only were the auras of these geniuses fluctuating, their countenances were all extremely unsightly to behold. Among them, Jiang Yan and Nyan were the worst. Jiang Yan's countenance was as cold as a piece of 10,000-year-old ice, as though he couldn't stand the sight of anyone. Nyan also had an expression similar to Jiang Yan, as though she was humiliated by someone. Her beautiful countenance turned green, and those who didn't know might even think that this beautiful woman was sullied by someone. What happened? The hearts of the spectators were filled with curiosity. Could it be that they didn't manage to kill that young man, Tianwen? Someone mused. However, the possibility of this was extremely small. With so many experts, how could they fail to kill a mere third-level ascendant? Even with Sharon and Mu Yan's help, the strength of these geniuses should be sufficient to delay the two of them before killing that young man. There was no doubt about this at all. Just as they were contemplating, the other geniuses had already arrived. They landed on the ground with ashen expressions, and none of them spoke a single word, directly returning to their seats at the banquet. In fact, they didn't even bother to speak to Pei Tianyuan. This caused the spectators to feel that something was amiss. Pei Xiao. Pei Tianyuan's gaze landed on Pei Xiao. These people were all geniuses from major powers, and it wasn't appropriate for Pei Tianyuan to force them to speak. Only Pei Xiao was his descendant, hence it was naturally more appropriate for him to question him. Pei Xiao inclined his head and stared at Pei Tianyuan with an awkward expression on his face. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. If he spoke the truth, the faces of these geniuses wouldn't look good. But in front of Pei Tianyuan, he didn't dare to lie. My king. Pei Xiao bowed slightly as he spoke. That fellow can borrow the power of runic inscriptions to battle. Borrow the power of runic inscriptions to battle? Pei Tianyuan's expression froze. Although Pei Xiao had only said one sentence, he immediately understood the meaning behind it. The fewer words Pei Xiao spoke, the more likely it was that something unexpected would happen. Even Pei Xiao didn't know what to say. Even if he borrowed the power of runic inscriptions to battle, with so many geniuses acting together, killing him should be as easy as flipping a palm. However, at this moment, a person who didn't understand the current situation spoke out. His words caused Nyan to coldly glance at him, after which she replied, "There's nothing to hide. That young man's attainments in runic inscriptions are extremely high. Although his strength isn't that high, he is extremely crafty. He lured us to the 9 immortality bells and borrowed the power of the runic inscriptions to attack us. We have no way to kill him. As the sound of the crowd rang out, everyone understood. Upon seeing the fluctuations of Nyan's aura, they felt that she was injured and even injured. Not only were they unable to kill the other party, it was likely that all of these geniuses had suffered. Otherwise, they wouldn't have returned in such a sorry state. Things were getting interesting now. It was one thing for the geniuses to return in low spirits one after another, but most likely, they were even abused by the other party. Nyan also didn't conceal this matter. There were countless people who witnessed the battle, and most probably, this news would soon spread throughout the entire Driftsnow city. There was no way to hide it, and the people at the banquet would soon learn about it. Hence, she might as well reveal some information first, so as to not lose too much face. Duke, come, let's drink. One of them spoke, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. Pei Tianyuan immediately understood. He smiled. Everyone, let's have a drink. Everyone, please enjoy the banquet today. The crowd raised their cups and drank together with the prefecture king Pei Tianyuan. Although this was the case, the rest of the banquet was extremely dull. There was no way to enjoy the banquet to their heart's content. The Heavens Chosen didn't have the slightest bit of interest in the banquet. They only greeted the prefecture king Pei Tianyuan for a short while before bidding their farewells. They only came back because they wanted to give the prefecture king Pei Tianyuan some face. This enmity must be settled with that fellow. Pei Yu, on the other hand, was happier. She didn't expect Tianwen to be so powerful. Naturally, she could guess that these people had suffered a disadvantage in the hands of Tianwen. The banquet ended in a hurry, and everyone took their leave. Soon, there were only a few people left at the banquet. The Jiangling King Pei Tianyuan, the Tower Lord of the Cloud Tower Ji Kong, the City Lord of the Driftsnow City, as well as the subordinates of the Pei clan. Pei Tianyuan picked up his wine cup and took a sip. He raised his head and looked at Pei Xiao. Tell me what happened in detail. Yes. Pei Xiao nodded and recounted everything that had happened, causing Pei Tianyuan to furrow his brows from time to time. Occasionally, a sharp glint would appear in his eyes. After Pei Xiao finished speaking, Pei Tianyuan muttered to himself for a moment before shaking his head. We've misjudged. No wonder Sharon is so close to this young man. So it's because of the 9 immortality bells. To think that the person with the deepest comprehension of the 9 immortality bells would be the first to be offended by us. Not only that, we even formed a grudge with these major powers. How depressing. This time around, experts from all over the Cloud Prefecture came to the Driftsnow city for the sake of the secret of the 9 immortality bells. However, Qin Wentian was the one who managed to sound the bells the most, yet he was humiliated repeatedly during the banquet. What a laughable matter. Most probably, if this matter were to spread out, he, Pei Tianyuan, would surely be the target of criticism from many in the Driftsnow city. However, what sort of figure was Pei Tianyuan? He wouldn't care about all this. My king, since we know that Tianwen's attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions are extremely high and he might be able to unravel the secret of the 9 immortality bells, why don't we befriend him now? Pei Yu interjected. Pei Tianyuan glanced at her before laughing. How naive. Although he's at the celestial phenomenon realm, he's merely an ant-like existence to me. But I'm not a fool. If you befriend him now, he would at most feign civility with you. I'm afraid he would already be filled with hatred in his heart. Also, so what if his attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions are extremely high? His cultivation base is still weak. Why would we offend the geniuses from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture just for him? Pei Yu, you are truly too naive. Even if we take 10,000 steps back, and he really unravels the secret of the 9 immortality bells, so what? The secret was unraveled by him. Does that mean that the benefits would belong to him? Pei Tianyuan stared at Pei Yu as he spoke, his words causing Pei Yu's countenance to turn pale. Pei Tianyuan's words caused her to feel a chill in her heart. Pei Xiao, continue to maintain a good relationship with those people. Pei Yu, you should leave as well. You are still too inexperienced. Pei Tianyuan spoke. Pei Yu nodded her head before bidding farewell. My king, since you told Pei Yu all these, why did you allow her to leave? Pei Xiao asked. Pei Tianyuan stared at Pei Xiao. He didn't say anything. Ji Kong, who was at the side, laughed. Pei Xiao, the Jiangling king, is doing this intentionally. Pei Yu is someone from the Jiangling king's manor. She should maintain a good relationship with Sharon, Mu Yan and Tianwen, treating each other with sincerity. As for you, isn't it good to maintain a good relationship with Jiang Yan and the others? No matter what the Jiangling king's standpoint is, at the very least, he doesn't need to take the initiative to target anyone. Just let them fight amongst themselves. Pei Xiao was enlightened, after which he respectfully replied, "Many thanks for Tower Lord Ji's guidance. Learn well." Ji Kong patted Pei Xiao on his shoulder, after which he stood up and departed as well. This banquet could be considered a failure, but Pei Tianyuan didn't mind it. In the following days, the news of Qin Wentian's battle with the geniuses circulated around. Momentarily, Tianwen's name became even more resounding. Many people knew that the young man who sat cross-legged before the 9 immortality bells every day wasn't because he couldn't communicate with them. Rather, it was because he was trying to comprehend them on a deeper level. As for Jiang Yan, every time he appeared, the gazes of everyone would be strange when they stared at him. This caused Jiang Yan to feel extremely uncomfortable, as though he was on the verge of collapse. At the same time as time flowed by, more and more experts arrived at the Driftsnow city. Truly a gathering of geniuses, experts were as common as the clouds. These experts all headed towards the 9 immortality bells, attempting to comprehend them. In fact, many experts from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture also arrived. Around the 9 immortality bells, Immortal Foundation experts could often be seen, radiating immortal halos, causing others to look up to them. In the surroundings of the 9 immortality bells, Immortal Foundation experts could be seen everywhere. All of a sudden, snowflakes drifted about in the Driftsnow city. These snowflakes weren't cold at all. They danced in the wind and swiftly melted when they landed on the ground, existing only for an instant. Beside one of the 9 immortality bells, Pei Yu was clad in white. She stretched her hand out, allowing the snowflakes to land on her palm. Her beautiful eyes stared at the sky as she mumbled, "Each and every snowflake that falls, are they the tears of you?" The Yu in Pei Yu's words naturally referred to the Driftsnow Master. In the legends, the Driftsnow Master used his flesh and blood to forge a city, infusing his soul into the 9 immortality bells. When the bells chimed, it was because he missed immortal jade. When the snowflakes fell, they were his tears. Aren't you a little too infatuated? Sharon walked to the side of Pei Yu as he smiled. Although he believed in this legend, he didn't believe that these snowflakes were the tears of the Driftsnow Master. Pei Yu stared at Sharon as a sweet smile appeared on her face. Anything is possible. The secret of the 9 immortality bells has yet to be unraveled, and Tianwen said that he has already seen the Driftsnow Master. What else is impossible? That fellow is a freak. Although I can communicate with the 9 immortality bells and form a connection, I've never seen the scene within before. This fellow actually said that he saw the Driftsnow Master? This is simply inconceivable. How high is his attainment in this aspect exactly? Sharon's lips twitched as he stared at Qin Wentian. This was already the 5th time Qin Wentian had comprehended the 9 immortality bells. He wanted to completely comprehend all 9 of them before he would have a chance to unravel the secret within. At this moment, Qin Wentian sat before the 9 immortality bells. His consciousness seemed to have sunk into the 9 immortality bells, or to put it more accurately, a scene within. In this scene, snowflakes drifted unceasingly. In the center of a gigantic castle, an incomparably gigantic silhouette quietly sat there. This silhouette was over 10,000 meters tall, as though its head could touch the heavens and its feet could touch the earth. It was simply terrifying. However, this giant merely had a gigantic physique. His countenance was handsome, and his countenance was gentle. His eyes stared into the horizons, filled with a sense of attachment. He stretched out his palms, allowing the snowflakes to land on his palms as they melted. However, he couldn't feel the coldness at all. He simply sat there like this, as though he wanted to sit there for the rest of his life, experiencing the passage of countless years. Chapter 779. This 10,000-meter tall giant was undoubtedly the Driftsnow Master. The Drift Snow Master's physique was already 10,000 meters tall, and was a legendary character. It was unknown how terrifying his cultivation base was. When Qin Wentian heard Pei Yu narrating the legends of the Drift Snow Master, although he believed in the love of time, as well as the obsession of immortal jade, he still had some suspicions about the Drift Snow Master using his body to forge the city, fusing his soul with the 9 immortality bells. But after seeing the gigantic body of the Drift Snow Master inside the 9 immortality bells, his suspicions vanished. The cultivation base of the Drift Snow Master might be extremely high, surpassing the immortal foundation realm. For a character like the Drift Snow Master, it was only normal for him to do such shocking things. Qin Wentian slowly opened his eyes, yet his gaze was still staring at the 9 immortality bells in a daze. Runic light radiated from the 9 immortality bells, and within it, there was a type of law energy that could activate the 9 immortality bells, probing the secrets within. However, no matter which law energy it was, they all seemed to be lacking something. Tianwen. At this moment, Sharon walked over. He stared at Qin Wentian as he asked, "What did you see in the 9 immortality bells?" Qin Wentian stared at Sharon as he shook his head. "It's just that it's a little clearer. I only saw a single person, the Drift Snow Master. This should be the scene after Immortal Jade's death. The Drift Snow Master lived a lonely life, staring at the drifting snow in a daze. Most probably he was thinking about her. Immortal Jade's obsession with weaponsmithing far surpassed her love for him, but the Drift Snow Master was a man of emotions. Given the Drift Snow Master's strength and handsome countenance, if he wanted women, no matter how vast the world was, there would be countless beauties willing to send themselves to him. However, he was willing to pay the price with his life for Immortal Jade. Drift Snow Master, I really want to see him personally." Pei Yu mumbled, staring at Qin Wentian with envy. This fellow actually saw the Drift Snow Master, that legendary character. What did he look like exactly? The Drift Snow Master is a magnificent character. I also hope that the people of the Drift Snow City would be able to witness his magnificence. Qin Wentian spoke. If the Drift Snow Master appeared in the current Drift Snow City, the fame of the Drift Snow City would surely soar, becoming the most famous city in the Jiangling country, even surpassing the Jiangling King City. At this moment, there were already many experts gathered in this area, all of them attempting to communicate with the 9 immortality bell. Although there were already many who managed to establish a connection with the bell, none of them were like Qin Wentian, causing the 9 immortality bell to emit a humming sound. As for whether there were others who were able to peer into the situation within the 9 immortality bell, it was unknown. At that moment, rays of celestial light seemed to shine in the sky, causing countless people to raise their heads and look at the sky. Their expressions trembled slightly. It's all Immortal Foundation experts. Without exception, all of them are Immortal Foundation characters. Seems like the Immortal Foundation experts from the various major powers have all arrived. The hearts of the spectators mused. Before this, only a portion of the experts had arrived. Right now, the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture should be arriving one after another. Pass down the decree of the Jiangling King. 3 days later, the 9 immortality bell will forbid anyone from entering. There will be geniuses forging weapons by the bell, causing it to chime. For those who have no way to communicate with the 9 immortality bell, they are not allowed to remain here. They are only allowed to spectate from outside the range of the runic light. At this moment, a clear voice rang out, echoing throughout the entire region. Those within the range of the 9 immortality bell, as well as the experts, all heard it. Are the geniuses starting to forge weapons before the 9 immortality bell? Pei Yu murmured. Qin Wentian stared at her as he asked, "Why do we need to forge weapons?" This is also related to the rumors about the 9 immortality bell. The main soul of the Drift Snow Master merged with the 9 immortality bell, because he and Immortal Jade's obsession was weaponsmithing. Hence, when the spirit of the 9 immortality bell manifests, they would need to communicate with it during the forging process to obtain a strand of immortal spirit from it. From there, they would be able to unravel the boundless mysteries of the 9 immortality bell. Pei Yu slowly explained, as the saying goes, the 9 immortality bell doesn't ask about immortals. But for those who aren't immortals, Once they connect with the 9 immortality bell, they would have a chance to ascend to immortality in a single step. This rumor has been circulating around the Driftsnow city, and is one of the unsolved mysteries of the Jiangling country. Can one really ascend to immortality in a single step? Qin Wentian silently shook his head. Cultivation was a step-by-step process. When the conditions were right, success would follow naturally. This was the law of the heavens and earth. It was impossible to surpass it. Ascending to immortality in a single step violated the law of cultivation? Qin Wentian naturally didn't believe it. However, even if he didn't believe it, since there was such a rumor, there must be some other meaning behind it. It was just that no one knew about it and hence, it was misunderstood by others. There are still 3 more days. I'll go communicate with the next 9 immortality bell first. Qin Wentian spoke. After that he stood up. Sharan Muyen and the others followed suit. During these days, they had been following beside Qin Wentian. Firstly, it was to prevent those experts from acting against Qin Wentian. Secondly, they wanted to see how far Qin Wentian could go, and whether he could communicate with all 9 immortality bells. If there was a chance to unravel the secret of the 9 immortality bells, the person who unraveled it would undoubtedly be Qin Wentian. The atmosphere around the 9 immortality bells grew more and more lively. From time to time, experts from the various major powers would gather, and Immortal Foundation experts could be seen everywhere. Immortal light flashed, incomparably dazzling. 3 days passed by in the blink of an eye. There were a total of 9 immortality bells, and in the center of the 9 immortality bells, there was a vast public square. At this moment, the Jiangling king of the Jiangling country arrived here. He brought along his Immortal Foundation troops, and for a period of time, a terrifying might swept out in all directions, causing everyone in this space to feel a faint sense of pressure. Everyone, the spirit of the 9 immortality bells has manifested even more clearly this time around. This time around, whether or not we can unravel the secret of the 9 immortality bells, would depend on the outstanding geniuses here. Pei Tianyuan stood in the air as he spoke, his voice echoing out in all directions. For those who have nothing to do with this, you can retreat now. Leave the region of the 9 immortality bells. Pei Tianyuan spoke again. After that, many people reluctantly retreated, leaving the region of the 9 immortality bells. At the same time, there were experts from the major powers in each of the 9 immortality bells, exuding a terrifying aura. The elites of the major powers were all here. As for the Immortal Foundation experts from the various powers, they stood in the air above the central region. Their gazes were sharp, sweeping through the vicinity of the 9 immortality bells. Every single location was clearly imprinted in their vision. The people of the various powers could also see them. Right now, Qin Wentian was already in front of the 8th 9 immortality bells. He inclined his head and stared at the sky as his countenance gleamed with sharpness. He only saw beams of cold light shooting towards him. Despite the distance, he could still feel the coldness and killing intent radiating from those beams of light. The person who shot his gaze over was none other than Zurius, a heaven chosen from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor. Zurius. Back then when he left, he was filled with reluctance in his heart. Now that he was standing among the experts of the Battle Heaven's immortal manor, he was even more extraordinary. Besides Zurius, there was another person who similarly stared in the direction of Qin Wentian as he asked, "Is this man the one who could borrow the power of runic inscriptions to defeat you all?" Zurius's sword-like brows twitched, as though he was unhappy. He coldly replied, "Yes, it's him. His attainments in the Tao of Runes are exceedingly high, and he can borrow the power of runic inscriptions to do battle." "Okay, let's head to the 9 immortality bells then." The person who spoke, his words causing Zurius's countenance to flicker. He shook his head. "The chances of us going there are very slim. It's not suitable." "If you don't want to go, I will." That person who spoke stepped out, moving towards the 9 immortality bells where Qin Wentian was at. The experts from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor stared at Zurius. One of the elders spoke. "Zurius, why do I feel that during your trip to the Driftsnow city, your sharpness seems to have lessened? You even have trepidation in your heart when facing third-level ascendants." Senior uncle, just watch. This man will definitely cause a storm. It's best to keep a close eye on him. If he manages to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bells, the Battle Heaven's immortal manor would be the first to control him. Zurius spoke. However, many people from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor didn't seem to mind. Zurius could only step out alone, moving towards the 9 immortality bells. Not only for Zurius, those who had grudges with Qin Wentian all arrived as well. The powers they were from all sent experts over as well. Nyan, I heard that there was someone who injured you back then. Who is it? Do you want to kill him? In the direction of the Seven Sword Sect, experts were as common as clouds. An Immortal Foundation expert spoke to Nyan. No need, I will handle my own matters. Kill him. Nyan rejected. Her gaze turned in the direction of Qin Wentian as her killing intent flickered coldly. She could naturally borrow the strength of the experts from the Seven Sword Sect. But if she needed to borrow the strength of her sect to kill a third-level ascendant, in the future, her existence in the Seven Sword Sect would surely become a joke. Even if she couldn't kill Qin Wentian herself, she wouldn't ask the Immortal Foundation experts of the Seven Sword Sect to do so. The experts from the Wondergate Immortal Manor also arrived. They stood in the air and many turned their gazes to Sharon as they asked, Sharon, are you ready? I will do my best. Let's do it before the 9 immortality bells. Sharon stared at the experts from the Wondergate Immortal Manor as he replied. Good, I'll wait for you to unravel the secret within the Driftsnow City's 9 immortality bells. This time around, although your master didn't come, he is still extremely concerned about you. Work hard and don't disappoint him. That person spoke again. Although there were experts from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture here, it was impossible for them to be too powerful. After all, the 9 immortality bells have existed for so many years, and there weren't too many secrets about them. Naturally, it wouldn't be able to attract too powerful characters. But even so, the number of experts gathered here was already extremely shocking. With a single glance, one could see that there were many Immortal Foundation experts in the air. At the same time, there were many geniuses gathered around each of the 9 immortality bells. They were all focused and prepared to forge a weapon, attempting to connect with the 9 immortality bells, unraveling the secrets within. Before the 9 immortality bells where Qin Wentian was, there were also many experts gathered. They stood arrogantly in the air, preparing to forge weapons. Only Qin Wentian was still standing there calmly, like he had nothing to do with this. Everyone, let's begin. From the air, another voice drifted over. It was none other than the voice of the Jiangling King. He stood in the air and turned his gaze downwards. The 9 immortality bells stood tall on the ground, with millions of weaponsmithing geniuses gathered below. However, Pei Tianyuan still didn't have too much hope. After so many years, the secret of the 9 immortality bells had yet to be unraveled. Although these people were all filled with lofty aspirations, they would eventually return in disappointment. He had seen such a situation many times before. From afar, those spectators who were far away from the 9 immortality bells had their gazes fixed on the bell region, paying attention to these geniuses. This time around, would there be anyone who could create history and unravel the mystery of the 9 immortality bells? Chapter 780. In the region of the 9 immortality bells, blazing flames soared as all sorts of weaponsmithing cauldrons appeared, floating in the air, shining with resplendent light. Naturally, there were also geniuses who weren't weaponsmiths. They were proficient in divine inscriptions, and could sense the runic light emanating from the 9 immortality bells, forming a connection with them. Hence, they quietly sat before the 9 immortality bells, attempting to form a connection with them. Among these people, there were many who originated from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. What powerful flames! Many of them are exceedingly rare flames. In fact, there are even some that were refined by experts using immortal flames. In the air, resplendent immortal light flashed. The Immortal Foundation experts all had immortal halos around them. Their eyes gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the geniuses forging weapons. Pei Tianyuan, Ji Kong, the Driftsnow Master and the others stood together. Beside them, There were experts from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. This time around, the Jiang clan seems to place more importance on this compared to the Wonder Gate Immortal Manor. The number of people from the Jiang clan is even greater. Pei Tianyuan glanced to the side. The experts from the Jiang clan formed a group. Their gazes landed on Jiang Yen and the other experts. At this moment, the flames Jiang Yen controlled shimmered with a treasured light, exuding a hint of coldness. This type of flame was known as the Netherfrost flame, and its destructive power was extremely strong. Just being touched by it would cause injuries. A few disciples from the Wonder Gate Immortal Manor came, as well as a few elders. Their numbers are far inferior compared to the Jiang clan. Pei Tianyuan turned his gaze to Sharon. Sharon's flames were golden in color, and his eyes also gleamed with a hint of gold. The flames enveloped the forging materials, resembling a terrifying golden lotus. As it opened and closed, a fiery heat gushed forth. Their control is so precise. Seems like the weaponsmithing techniques of these geniuses are extraordinary. Ji Kong mumbled. Other than the disciples from the Jiang clan and the Wonder Gate Immortal Manor, there were also many other outstanding weaponsmiths. Qin Wentian was still in front of the 8th ancient bell with his eyes closed. The runic light in the air flowed about in the darkness, hidden in formlessness, converging into a mysterious energy that revolved around the 9 immortality bell, transforming into law energy that directly seeped into the ancient bell. In an instant, Qin Wentian's will seeped in, and another city appeared before him. This time around, Qin Wentian saw the Driftsnauen. The Driftsnauen of the past was even more beautiful compared to the Driftsnauen today. Although the mountain range and buildings were roughly the same, the loneliness and emptiness of the mountain made it seem like a paradise on earth. Snowflakes drifted about. The Driftsnauen was filled with desolation, causing one to feel a sense of desolation and loneliness. What was even more shocking was that in the middle of the Driftsnauen, a beautiful silhouette could be seen quietly lying there. She was clad in a beautiful long dress, resembling a fresh flower in full bloom. Amidst the boundless white snow, she exuded a poignant beauty. As the snowflakes landed on her body, they swiftly melted away. The eyes of that beautiful silhouette were still open, with a poignant smile on her face. On the mountain rampart beside her, a row of graceful words could be seen. Refining one city to spend the rest of my life, the Lord is unwilling, I can only do it personally. Unfortunately, the heavens do not grant my wish. In the place of love, in the Driftsnauen, the Lord shall take one last look at the beauty. The graceful words contained a sense of desolation. At this moment, the mountain range trembled, the air trembled, the snowflakes stopped drifting down, and time seemed to have stopped. On the stairway leading to the Driftsnauen, the silhouette of a handsome young man was trembling as he walked step by step towards the withered body of the beauty. Both his hands and legs were trembling. A look of terror could be seen on his handsome face, as though he was currently enduring an extreme agony. Finally, he arrived at the side of the beauty. With a thud, both his legs couldn't stand stably as he fell to the ground. His hands trembled, wanting to stretch out his arms, yet he didn't dare to do so. The corners of his eyes were red as blood flowed out. Such pain, to him, was simply too cruel. Immortal Jade, why are you so cruel? The voice of the handsome young man trembled. As the sound of his voice faded, the snowflakes in the air shattered as the mountain range trembled. I said I wanted to refine a city. I would accompany you to traverse thousands of rivers and rivers, refining this city for you. I even wanted to bring you to roam the world, admiring the beautiful sceneries of the world. But why are you so stubborn, unwilling to roam the world with me? As the young man spoke, blood flowed from the corners of his eyes, as though he was in extreme agony. It was just a small dispute. Why must you punish me like this? The Driftsnauen master stretched out his trembling hands, gently caressing the face of the beauty. But at this moment, at the instant the Driftsnauen master touched her, the body of the beauty actually transformed into a beam of white light, becoming illusory. The countenance of the young man trembled as his body trembled even more violently. The beautiful eyes of the illusory beauty stared at the Driftsnauen master as a gentle smile appeared on her face. That smile seemed to contain all the love in her life. after which, her illusory body transformed into smoke, dissipating into the air. The young man stretched his hands out. Yet he had no way to grab hold of anything. His countenance turned even paler, without the slightest hint of blood. Arg! The young man howled in agony. The snowflakes frenziedly crumbled. The space around him seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Using your body to refine a city? Do you really want to refine a city for the rest of your life? Why must you be so cruel to me? The young man, the Driftsnow master, howled in agony, enduring the boundless agony. His gaze stared ahead. There was a city that he and Immortal Jade had created. The cold wind danced as the snowflakes drifted down once more. The hair of the Driftsnow master turned white. He stood there alone, staring at the city. Over there, the woman he loved was buried. The scene dissipated, gradually turning blurry. In the external world, Qin Wentian opened his eyes, feeling a sense of disappointment and frustration in his heart. Seems like the legends recorded in the ancient records are slightly different from the events that happened back then. Qin Wentian mumbled. Immortal Jade used her life to refine a city. It wasn't because she had a deep obsession with weaponsmithing. Rather, it was because her love for the Driftsnow master was so deep that it was engraved into her bones. She hoped to spend the rest of her life in this city, and wasn't willing to follow the Driftsnow master to roam the world. The ideals of the two of them clashed, resulting in a conflict. Only then did Immortal Jade use her body to refine the city. The Driftsnow master only cast a final glance at her before he vanished into thin air. Within the 9 immortality bells, the scenes played out one by one. Within these ancient bells, the story of the Driftsnow master and Immortal Jade was recorded. There's only one more bell left. Qin Wentian silently mused. He stood up and moved towards the direction of the final bell. At the same time, the geniuses had already entered a state of concentration. Resplendent light flashed in the air, and the divine weapons of many experts were already taking shape. These weaponsmiths had already separated themselves from the embryonic form of the weapon. Low-level weaponsmiths could only use the embryonic form, but once they reached a certain level, they would have to separate themselves from the embryonic form. To refine a divine weapon, the 9 immortality bells have to manifest its spirit. One has to borrow the power of the runic inscriptions and infuse the spirit of the 9 immortality bells into the weapon. An expert in the air spoke, reminding the geniuses below that they shouldn't just immerse themselves in forging weapons. This time around, by forging divine weapons in front of the 9 immortality bells, they would be able to truly comprehend the secrets within. If not, if they simply wanted to forge divine weapons, why would they need to come here? Wouldn't it be better to do it in the sect? Blazing flames soared up into the sky. As the resplendent flames burned even more intensely, resplendent light illuminated this entire space, causing the spectators from afar to exclaim in admiration. Jiang Yan and Sharon are truly impressive. The divine weapons they forged should be close to the level of immortal-ranked divine weapons. The spectators commented as they stared at their forging. There are also experts from the Jiang clan, Wondergate Immortal Manor, Battle Heaven's Immortal Manor, Myriad Sage Academy and 9 Peak Immortal Court. All of them are extremely powerful. The gazes of the crowd turned to the others. These people were all extraordinary in terms of weaponsmithing, extremely terrifying. However, Qin Wentian didn't have the time to care about all these. At this moment, he came to the final 9 immortality bells and sat there quietly, as though he had entered a state of oblivion. He started to form a connection with the runic inscriptions within, trying to comprehend the marvelous law energy contained within. The countless runic inscriptions, in the eyes of Qin Wentian, weren't independent existences. They were a complete entity. The runic light shone resplendently as the runic inscriptions on the 9 immortality bells started to flow. It was as though the runic inscriptions on the ancient bells were wriggling as they flowed together with the runic inscriptions. Under the guidance of this law energy, Qin Wentian's will entered the final 9 immortality bells. The Driftsnow master was still sitting in the Driftsnow Inn. After a long time, he stared at the city before him as though he was in a daze, sinking into boundless guilt and pain. Since you are so stubborn, I shall accompany you until you grow old. The Driftsnow master stared at the snowflakes that filled the sky as he spoke in a low voice. I originally roamed the world, pursuing a supreme existence. Yet because of the punishment you gave me, I have to bury my bones here. 1,000 years later, would there still be people who would know of me, the Drift's now master? After speaking, the Drift's now master's body abruptly expanded, transforming into a primordial giant that was tens of thousands of meters tall. It was as though even the ancient city before him wasn't much bigger than him. Immortal Jade, since you are willing to bury your bones here, I shall accompany you, using my body to refine this city. The Drift's now master spoke in a melancholic voice. He stretched out his hand, allowing the snowflakes in the air to land on his palm. Roar! With a howl of rage, the Drift's now master's body expanded once again, growing even larger, as though he was about to reach the heavens. Immortal Jade, why must you do this? Punish us? The Drift's now master howled in rage. His body continued to expand explosively, reaching a height of 100,000 meters. His head truly towered over the heavens. Every drop of his tears flowed like rivers, merging into the air, transforming into mist, transforming into snowflakes, drifting down with the wind. I will use my body of flesh and blood to refine this city. The Drift's now master's body circulated with terrifying runic light. It was as though his body had transformed into a weapon. Divine light flashed, incomparably resplendent. His body expanded once again, and with a thunderous boom, he transformed into a rain of blood and flesh, falling down from the sky. Every drop of blood and flesh merged into the ancient city below, permeating into the earth. The runic light was still as bright as ever, illuminating the entire land. Go! The Drift's now master took out the 9 immortality bells and tossed them into the 9 directions. He then spoke. This bell chime shall guard this city. When I think of you, the bell chimes will ring out. As the sound of his voice faded, the soul of the Drift's now master wanted to drill into the 9 immortality bells. The entire city was trembling. Runic light flashed as every corner of the city radiated boundless resplendent light. Chapter 781. The Drift's now master used his body to refine the city. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He personally witnessed how the Drift's now master refined city was destroyed. That 100,000-meter-tall body of the Drift's now master was akin to an ancient fiend god. His entire body shone with resplendent light, as though his body was a divine weapon forged from the heavens. However, the Drift's now master refined city had actually destroyed his entire body, fusing it into the city. At this instant, the entire city was illuminated by runic light, as though it was undergoing the refinement of the Drift's now master. This entire city was about to become a creature of flesh and blood. The 9 immortality bells were the spirits of this city, because the Drift's now master's soul had been infused into them. The 9 immortality bells would often manifest its spirit, and every time it did so, it meant that the Drift's now master was thinking of Immortal Jade. The Drift's now master was willing to give up his life for Immortal Jade. From this, one could very well imagine how deep his love for her was. Immortal Jade was the same as well. She wasn't willing to follow the Drift's now master to roam the world, and only wished to spend the rest of her life in Smelting City, accompanying the Drift's now master. It couldn't be said that she didn't love the Drift's now master. It was just that their methods of love were different, and their ideals were different. This kind of divergence actually resulted in a tragedy. One couldn't help but to sigh. They were both lovers, yet they chose to walk the path of sorrow. A single wrong thought could cause them to be unable to spend the rest of their lives together. Sometimes, a slight difference in ideals could result in such terrifying consequences. It could be sung, it could be moved to tears, yet it was also lamentable. The world is boundlessly vast, yet I'm not fated to walk down this path. I, the Drift's now master, have pursued this path my entire life, yet I'm bound by love. I'll spend the rest of my life here, accompanying Immortal Jade in this city that we used our lives to refine. The voice of the Drift's now master reverberated through the air. It was unknown who he was speaking to. After my death, this city would surely be coveted by others. In order to prevent those who are too powerful from coming here, I shall use the chimes of the bells as a guide, allowing the 9 immortality bells to lead the way. The voice of the Drifts Now Master drifted through the air, filled with helplessness. The 9 immortality bells don't question immortals. If one day, there's someone who can connect to immortality through weapon forging, he would be able to obtain this city. At that time you can be considered half a disciple of mine. Help me protect this city from destruction. As this voice rang out, the ancient city below began to shine even brighter. It was as if it was an incomparably large treasure. Dong! The sound of a bell suddenly rang out, reverberating in the empty ancient city for a long time. When the bell chimes rang out, it was the moment when the Drifts Now Master missed immortal jade. He had just sacrificed his life to refine the city, but he already started to miss immortal jade. He would accompany immortal jade by her side, protecting this city. The two of them sacrificed their lives to refine this city. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 bells rang out one after another, as though there was no end to it. It was so loud that it could shatter the souls of those who heard it. But when Qin Wentian heard the never-ending chimes, he only felt an ache in his heart, as though the emotions in his heart were stirred up. Thump, 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 thump. The bell chimes seemed to never be extinguished. The longing of the Drifts Now Master was boundless. Boom. In the external world, the chime of a bell suddenly rang out, startling Qin Wentian awake. He opened his eyes and sat there as he sighed in sorrow. The bell chimes are ringing. Qin Wentian mumbled. He inclined his head only to see the 9 bells resonating at this moment. Beams of resplendent light flashed as they linked together, causing boundless runic light to circulate as the 9 bells merged into one. The weaponsmith's eyes gleamed with sharpness as their spirits soared. They frenziedly drew the energy from the 9 immortality bells to refine their divine weapons. The divine weapons they forged all began to glow with resplendent light, and there were even terrifying beams of light shooting up into the air. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian wasn't in the mood to admire it. He only casually glanced at the weaponsmiths in the air, his countenance calm. So it turned out that the Drifts Now Master had long predicted that there would be experts spying on him after his death. Hence, there was a rumor that the 9 immortality bells didn't question immortals. At the same time, he allowed those true geniuses of the younger generations to gain some insights from this place. And because of this, those stronger existences would treat this place as a tempering ground and wouldn't forcefully destroy it. Naturally, this city itself should have an extremely powerful defense. If one wasn't a supreme expert, they wouldn't be able to shake it at all. In the past, it must have experienced the baptism of wind and rain. The Drifts Now city today was evidently no longer the city created by the Drifts Now Master and immortal jade. Right now, there was no one in the Drifts Now city who could unravel the secrets of this ancient city. In fact, no one in the entire Jiangling country would be able to do so. As for those immortal kings and immortal emperors, they most probably had no time to investigate this so-called legend. For those who could forge weapons to connect with immortality, they could obtain this city and become half a disciple of the Drifts Now Master. Ultimately, one still had to rely on weapon forging. Most probably, the Drifts Now Master was choosing a successor for this city. This successor would be half a disciple, and would naturally do his best to protect this city. Forging weapons? Qin Wentian mumbled in a low voice. His gaze gradually focused, staring at the geniuses in the air who were forging their weapons. At this moment, a terrifying beam of light flashed as a fearsome flame appeared in the air. That flame was actually a fiery red long spear. The tip of the long spear was blazing red in color, exuding a fearsome destructive might. It was as though a single strike from the spear would be able to penetrate through people and kill them. Middle grade 5th rank divine weapon. I've forged a mid-grade 5th rank divine weapon. The person who created the fiery long spear was a weaponsmithing genius from the Purple Flame sect. At this moment, his eyes flickered with excitement, as though he was extremely satisfied with the spear he created. He would often forge divine weapons in the Purple Flame sect, but ever since he started forging, this divine weapon was the one he was most proud of. It was forged by borrowing the energy from the runic inscriptions of the 9 immortality bells. The 9 immortality bells truly contained boundless mysteries. And earlier, he actually received a hint of guidance from the ancient bells, causing him to be extremely excited. He knew that today, There were countless geniuses gathered here. Although he came here to temper himself, it was impossible for him to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bells. Being able to obtain some benefits was already enough for him to be overjoyed. He didn't dare to ask for too much. This person's cultivation base isn't high, yet he was able to forge a mid-grade 5th-ranked divine weapon. Not bad. Most probably, those powerful characters would be able to forge even higher-ranked divine weapons. In the air, the Jiangling king, Pei Tianyuan, spoke. Ji Kong, who was beside him, nodded his head. Those from the Jiang clan and the Wondergate Immortal Manor would definitely be there. There are also a few other geniuses who are extremely powerful, and the divine weapons they forged are already starting to take shape. Most probably they would all be top-tier 5th-ranked divine weapons. The weaponsmithing proficiency of these people is already extremely high. Now that they're in front of the 9 immortality bells, they can borrow the might of the 9 immortality bells to forge even stronger divine weapons. Sadly, although the distance between immortal and mortal is only a single step, it's extremely difficult to cross it. Pei Tianyuan sighed. If one could forge immortal-ranked weapons, wouldn't it be the same as ascending to immortality in a single step? That might not be the case. Right now, the 9 immortality bells seem to have been stimulated, resonating with each other. The runic light from the bells grew even stronger, and the amount of power one could borrow from them would also increase. This is a stroke of good fortune. There's a high possibility that the secret of the 9 immortality bells would be unraveled. In the air, the immortals all stared at the geniuses below as their countenances gleamed with sharpness. Those from the Jiang clan were paying attention to their disciples, while those from the Wondergate Immortal Manor were paying attention to those from the Wondergate Immortal Manor. Another divine weapon has been forged. It's a battle axe forged by a weaponsmith from the Battle Heaven's Immortal Manor. Although this weaponsmith's age is on the older side, he can be considered extremely powerful, being able to forge a top-tier 5th-ranked divine weapon. The battle intent of this battle axe towered up the heavens, exuding boundless might. Most probably, a single chop from this axe would be able to easily slay anyone below the 7th level of celestial phenomenon. Not bad. Zurius from the Battle Heaven's Immortal Manor glanced at the old man who forged the divine weapon as he praised. He himself wasn't a weaponsmith, it was just that he had an extremely high combat talent. He didn't forge a weapon, and was only trying to gain insights from the 9 immortality bells. Sadly, he wasn't able to comprehend much. Jiang Yan. The gazes of the experts from the Jiang clan all focused on Jiang Yan. At this moment, Jiang Yan was forging a pagoda. Treasured pagodas were one of the most difficult divine weapons to forge. The forging method was exceedingly complex, and the failure rate was simply too high. The requirements for the weaponsmith were extremely harsh, their control had to be extremely precise, and the slightest mistake would result in failure. But this time around, Jiang Yan was actually forging a treasured pagoda. Not only that, the pagoda was already starting to take shape, shining with resplendent light as golden flames revolved around it. There was also a layer of frost chi permeating the air, containing a terrifying destructive might within. Jiang Yan wants to break through his limits, communicating with the 9 immortality bells, and forging a pagoda to see if he can gain the recognition of the 9 immortality bells. An elder from the Jiang clan spoke. This time around, Jiang Yan had caused him to have a whole new level of respect for him. He wanted to personally witness Jiang Yan breaking through his limits and forging a powerful divine weapon. The 9 immortality bells resonated with the pagoda as streams of runic light flowed into it. A moment later, the light from the pagoda grew even more resplendent as it trembled unceasingly. Jiang Yan occasionally blasted out ancient imprints, causing the pagoda to revolve unceasingly. Finally, the runic light in the air flowed together, causing a beam of light to shoot up into the clouds as a terrifying aura erupted forth from within. Success! Jiang Yan roared. The pagoda soared through the air, radiating a terrifying might as the 9 immortality bells chimed, as though acknowledging the existence of the pagoda. Top grade. Jiang Yan's eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. This pagoda was a peak grade 5th-ranked divine weapon, and this was the strongest he could unleash. The 9 immortality bells truly lived up to their name. Sadly, even so, the secrets of the 9 immortality bells weren't revealed to him. How hateful! Jiang Yan's gaze abruptly turned over, staring in the direction of the 9 immortality bells where Chiron was at. Upon seeing Chiron concentrating on the forging process, his eyes flickered with coldness. After which, Jiang Yan's silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. An instant later, he appeared before Chiron as he spoke. Chiron, the divine weapon you forged is inferior to mine. Just a mere long spear, how can it surpass the pagoda I forged? Why don't you just give up? Chiron furrowed his brows, glancing at Jiang Yan while controlling himself not to be distracted. Jiang Yan. In the air, an elder from the Wonder Gate Immortal Manor coldly called out. Jiang Yan inclined his head as he coldly laughed. Before this, your disciple Chiron was extremely arrogant in front of me. Now, I'm merely returning the favor. Don't worry, I won't stop him. I'll allow him to continue forging. After speaking, Jiang Yan's gaze turned to Qin Wentian in another direction. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he rushed out with the pagoda. Chapter 782. What does Jiang Yan want to do? The expressions of the spectators froze when they saw Jiang Yan's actions. He was currently rushing towards one of the 9 immortality bells with the pagoda he forged, aiming for a young man. That young man inclined his head and glanced at Jiang Yan. Although his cultivation base wasn't strong, his eyes gleamed with sharpness. This man is named Tianwen. A few days ago, the geniuses gathered at the 9 immortality bells to deal with him, but he borrowed the might of the bells to defeat them. His comprehension of the 9 immortality bells is extremely deep, and he's able to borrow the power of the millions of runic inscriptions to launch attacks. Back then, Jiang Yan suffered a great loss in his hands and lost all face. Now he's borrowing the power of a divine weapon to kill his way over. I wonder if he's doing this to test the waters or to regain some face. Someone spoke. At this moment, many people in the Driftsnow city knew about this. Only those major powers who came later weren't very clear about this. When they saw Jiang Yan's actions, they all inquired about it and couldn't help but to stare at Qin Wentian with interest in their eyes. This man actually resisted against the combined forces of so many geniuses, and was still so arrogant? And at this moment, Jiang Yan had already arrived before Qin Wentian. The pagoda floated before him. His eyes were cold and gleaming with coldness. Strands of hot and cold aura gushed forth from the pagoda, as though there were rings of light radiating from it. It was extremely terrifying, as though the moment the pagoda unleashed its might, it would be able to directly annihilate people. Aren't your comprehension of runic inscriptions very high? Why don't you know how to forge a weapon? Jiang Yan stared at Qin Wentian, looking down at him from a lofty position. His eyes flickered with arrogance. It was unknown if it was because of the humiliation he suffered in the past, and he wanted to take revenge on Qin Wentian now. Qin Wentian inclined his head and glanced at Jiang Yan, after which he spat out a single word, scram. As the sound of his voice faded, the 9 immortality bells chimed. The word scram reverberated through the air, lingering for a long time. Everyone in the surroundings heard it and inclined their heads, only to see Jiang Yan's countenance turning ashen. Staring at the cold eyes of Qin Wentian, he only felt that this was the most intense humiliation he had ever suffered in his entire life. He forged a peak-level divine weapon and came here to question the other party. Yet the other party only gave him a single word, scram. Such arrogance far surpassed him by 100 times. He simply had no one in his eyes, completely disregarding Jiang Yan. Kill! Jiang Yan roared in rage. A moment later, the pagoda directly bore down on Qin Wentian. In an instant, the light from the pagoda expanded infinitely, enveloping Qin Wentian. Everywhere the light enveloped, everything was filled with destructive might, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Wentian waved his palms as a thunderous boom echoed out. The 9 immortality bells trembled in Jiang Yan's sea of consciousness as terrifying runic lights flashed. Qin Wentian lifted his palms and punched out. In just an instant, boundless golden fist light filled the skies as rumbling sounds echoed out. The light screen of the pagoda was directly destroyed by the golden fist light. Jiang Yan stepped downwards as his aura gushed forth. At the same time, the pagoda expanded in size, radiating boundless underworld flames that transformed into a towering grand formation that blotted out the skies and covered the earth. When Qin Wentian inclined his head, he only felt that even the sky was covered by the incomparably fearsome underworld flames. Even the air seemed to have turned blurry from the scorching heat, as though water vapor could be seen in the air. Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever as he coldly snorted. In the depths of his fist, boundless runic light converged into a long river. The resonance runes of the 9 immortality bells flowed towards him. Qin Wentian's body was clad in golden armor, exuding an unexcelled aura. His fist was enveloped by a golden screen of light, exuding an indomitable aura, terrifying to the extreme. Scram! Qin Wentian coldly snorted. He only spoke a single word as he punched out. The boundless runic inscriptions converged into a golden river, transforming into a gigantic golden fist that could shatter the heavens. It directly broke through the underworld flames of the pagoda and slammed into the center of the pagoda. The gigantic pagoda emitted a deafening sound as it was directly flung through the air, slamming into Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air. In just an instant, it was as though Qin Wentian's fist had sent him up into the 9 heavens. Is he really so powerful? The eyes of the spectators gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wentian's ability to borrow the might of the 9 immortality bells was truly impressive. He could easily control the power of the millions of runes within the bells, transforming them into terrifying attacks for him. The eyes of the experts from the Jiang clan gleamed with coldness as they bore down on Qin Wentian. There were Immortal Foundation experts among them, and the auras they exuded were Immortal Foundation experts. How powerful were they? Despite the distance between them, Qin Wentian could still instantly feel the pressure. Their gazes seemed to be able to penetrate his soul, and their auras could penetrate his body. Immortal Foundation experts were characters on a different level. If they wanted to kill him, even the power of the runes within the 9 immortality bells wouldn't be enough. Seems like I have to connect with immortality through smithing and become a half-disciple of the Drifts Now Master. Only then would I have a chance to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bells and obtain the strongest might. Qin Wentian mused. With so many powerful enemies around him, although these Immortal Foundation experts didn't have a reason to act against him now, no one knew what would happen in the future. He definitely mustn't place his hopes on them. He had to increase his own confidence. Only then would he be able to deal with all possible dangers. Jiang Yan's body transformed into a beam of light as he shot through the air. He had the pagoda in his hand, but his countenance was ashen. He no longer had the high spirits he had earlier. His eyes were filled with boundless killing intent as he stared at Qin Wentian. The countenances of the experts from the Jiang clan were all extremely cold when they saw this scene. However, as Immortal Foundation experts, if they acted against someone at a lower level just because Jiang Yan was defeated, they would definitely be mocked by others. Jiang Yan! An Immortal Foundation expert called out. Momentarily, Jiang Yan turned his gaze over. This humiliation can only be washed away with blood. Do you understand? That Immortal Foundation expert stared at Jiang Yan. Naturally. Jiang Yan nodded. The life of this person would definitely be his. If not, how would he be able to establish a foothold in the Jiang clan in the future? How would he be able to convince the masses? Seems like you don't even know how the word humiliation is written. To think that you still have the guts to spout such arrogant words at this moment. How ridiculous. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, even more powerful runes flowed around him. He was immersed within them, as though he had won. His killing intent gushed forth, causing Jiang Yan's countenance to turn ashen. After which, his silhouette flickered as he retreated, yet his eyes were as cold as ice as he stared at Qin Wentian. I want to see if you can hide in front of the 9 immortality bells forever. Jiang Yan roared in rage. At the very least, I can make you scram, never to step into the vicinity of the 9 immortality bells ever again. Qin Wentian soared up into the air. Runic light moved with him as he slammed out with his palms, manifesting a star-seizing palm imprint that could destroy everything, directly grabbing towards Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan retreated explosively, his speed as fast as lightning. Qin Wentian didn't hesitate to chase after him. You! Jiang Yan howled in rage. Qin Wentian madly chased after him. The terrifying star-seizing palm imprint followed closely behind him. Jiang Yan fled in a sorry state, directly leaving the vicinity of the 9 immortality bells. You keep on fighting despite being defeated, and you keep on spouting nonsense. This is the first time I've seen such a shameless person. Qin Wentian inclined his head as he mocked. After which, his gaze no longer looked at the ugly expression on Jiang Yan's face. Instead, he turned his gaze to the surroundings. The experts within the 9 immortality bells were still forging their weapons. Many of them were already at a critical juncture. Boom! At this moment, the 9 immortality bells were activated as a genius from the Myriad Sage Academy created a powerful divine weapon. This weapon was the same as Jiang Yan. It was a peak tier 5th ranked weapon that shone resplendently. Senior brother is awesome. That person had a smile on his face as he stared at the 9 immortality bell. Earlier, he gained a trace of comprehension from the bell, but sadly, he was the same as well. He had no way to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bell. He could faintly sense that the secrets within the 9 immortality bell were extremely deep and profound. Although he borrowed the might of the bell to forge a weapon, the amount of energy he borrowed was merely the tip of the iceberg. The Myriad Sage Academy is as expected of a peak power of the Cloud Prefecture. They have geniuses that are proficient in all sorts of arts, and they even have such a genius in weaponsmithing. Pei Tianyuan laughed. After which, the Immortal Foundation experts from the Myriad Sage Academy all had smiles on their faces. Today has truly broadened my horizons. The geniuses here are actually able to forge top-tier 5th-ranked divine weapons. How impressive! The Drift's now master stared below as he sighed in admiration. He didn't mention anything about Jiang Yan and Qin Wentian earlier, only mentioning the weaponsmithing process. Yes, over there's another person who successfully forged a powerful divine weapon. Jikong pointed to a direction. The spectators from afar stared in the direction of the 9 immortality bells. Divine weapons continued to appear one after another. It was truly shocking. Although this young man has extraordinary attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, it's a pity that he doesn't know how to forge weapons. He naturally has no way to comprehend the mysteries within the 9 immortality bells. It's better for the geniuses to forge divine weapons. Pei Tianyuan glanced at Qin Wentian as he spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the experts from the major powers all felt a little more comfortable. Before this, Qin Wentian's domineering strength had suppressed Jiang Yan, borrowing the might of the 9 immortality bells to suppress the geniuses. Although the one who lost the most face was Jiang Yan, the other major powers also felt that their limelight was stolen by someone else. Pei Tianyuan's words were just right, causing the experts from the major powers to feel a little more comfortable. This was also where Pei Tianyuan's craftiness came from. The Jiangling King's words aren't false. Since we can only borrow the might of the runic inscriptions, we have no way to communicate with the 9 immortality bells. We might as well forge divine weapons instead. Someone laughed. Look, there's another expert who managed to forge a powerful divine weapon. Heroes come from the younger generation. This should be someone from the 9 Peak Academy, right? The disciples of major powers are truly extraordinary. Haha, it's the same for your Battle Heaven's immortal manner as well. The major powers all started to flatter each other. Qin Wentian didn't care about the words of these people. He walked towards Sharon only to see that at this moment, Sharon was still forging a divine spear. Qin Wentian spoke to him. Brother Sharon, the divine weapon has already taken shape. Seems like your requirements for this divine weapon are very harsh. I'm not proficient in flames. Can you lend me this divine weapon for a while? Sharon's eyes brightened as he stared at Qin Wentian. Earlier, he had also heard the words of those people, and was filled with reluctance in his heart. Qin Wentian had such high attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, suppressing the geniuses of the major powers. But now, he was the target of jealousy instead. He also wanted to see how Qin Wentian forged a divine weapon. If he could forge a peak tier 5th rank divine weapon, it would be good for him to ruthlessly slap the faces of these major powers, asking them to look down on him. Chapter 783. Chiron had a smile on his face as he stared at Qin Wentian. With such talent in divine inscriptions, how could he not be proficient in weaponsmithing? You forge it, I will assist you. Chiron smiled. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Many thanks, brother Chiron. After speaking, he stepped out and walked to the other side of Chiron. Come, let me guide you. If you have any requests, feel free to speak. I will do my best to assist you. Chiron straightforwardly spoke. Most probably, even Jiang Yan's treasured pagoda wouldn't be able to surpass him. Now he hoped that Qin Wentian would be able to forge an extraordinary long spear. Ghost Saber Mu Yen, who was at the side, had a smile on his face when he saw this scene. The two of them forged a weapon together. He wondered what kind of divine weapon they would create. Right now, there were already many geniuses who could forge peak-grade 5th-ranked weapons. It was extremely difficult to surpass them. Unless Qin Wentian's divine weapon was extremely unique. If not, it would be extremely difficult, almost impossible, for him to stun everyone. Now they would have to wait and see if a miracle would happen. Maybe Qin Wentian would be able to create a miraculous effect on this long spear, allowing it to possess a unique might. Only then would he be able to gain an advantage when compared to the divine weapons forged by others. In the air, the experts all started when they heard Qin Wentian's words. The eyes of the Jiangling king, Pei Tianyuan, flashed. Earlier, he had just demoted Qin Wentian to raise the status of the major powers. Yet now, Qin Wentian was already preparing to forge a divine weapon? Was Qin Wentian trying to give him face? He wanted to see what kind of divine weapon this young man could forge. Would it be able to surpass the divine weapons forged by these geniuses? Regardless of the geniuses from the Jiang clan or the Nine Mountain Immortal Manor, the weapons they forged had already reached the pinnacle of the 5th ranked. It would be extremely difficult for them to surpass it. As for immortal-ranked weapons, he had never thought about it. How could a 3rd-level ascendant be able to forge an immortal-ranked weapon? Immortals were called immortals because they were fundamentally different from mortals. The gap between immortals and mortals was insurmountable. Leaving aside Qin Wentian, in the entire Cloud Prefecture, there wasn't anyone below the immortal realm who could forge an immortal-ranked weapon. Even in the history of the Cloud Prefecture, there were only a few who could do so. And these few were all at the peak level of celestial phenomenon. They had extraordinary abilities and obtained immortal energy before they were able to forge immortal-ranked weapons. As for Qin Wentian, nobody would even think about him. Even if he borrowed the power of the 9 immortality bells, it would be impossible for him to do so. Looks like there's going to be a good show. Pei Tianyuan laughed. He was filled with anticipation to see what kind of divine weapon Qin Wentian would use to slap his face and make him take back his words. Haha, interesting indeed, I'm filled with anticipation. Ji Kong's countenance gleamed with sharpness as he laughed. His eyes then turned to Qin Wentian and Chiron. Those from the various powers all turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian and Chiron. They wanted to see what kind of divine weapon these two who had extraordinary attainments in runic inscriptions were going to forge. At this moment, Qin Wentian and Chiron had already started to cooperate. Not long after, Qin Wentian started to take control. Chiron was like what he said, he only did his best to assist Qin Wentian, directly handing over the control of the divine weapon to Qin Wentian. Next, he would cooperate with Qin Wentian, allowing Qin Wentian to refine the divine weapon as he wished. At this moment, Qin Wentian's perception frenziedly gushed out, permeating the entire space, appearing within the 9 immortality bells. He communicated with the 9 immortality bells at the same time, forging weapons to connect with immortals. If one doesn't forge immortal weapons, how can one connect with immortals through forging weapons? Qin Wentian mused. Since the Drifts Now Master left behind these words, this meant that those who could communicate with the 9 immortality bells would have a chance to forge an immortal weapon. As long as one could find the law energy required by the 9 immortality bells, they would be able to connect with immortals. The 9 immortality bells resonated as though they were one. Boundless runic light flashed. Qin Wentian's perception sank into it as he started to comprehend the law energy he obtained from the 9 immortality bells. A gaze, a palm imprint, an indestructible body. Qin Wentian was immersed in his perception. At this moment, he seemed to be standing in the center of the 9 immortality bells, bathing in the radiance of the 9 bells. Boundless runic light flowed through his body. I can't connect with immortals, but the 9 immortality bells can. As long as I unravel the laws within the 9 immortality bells, I would be able to find the law to connect with immortals. Qin Wentian mused as he continued to comprehend. The spectators only saw Qin Wentian controlling the divine weapon, standing there with his eyes closed. Boundless runic light flowed around him, incomparably resplendent, giving off an unfathomable feeling. However, he didn't take the next step, causing people to be suspicious. Acting all mysterious. In the air, Jiang Yan's eyes flashed with coldness. He mocked. Evidently, he was the one who didn't want Qin Wentian to forge a powerful divine weapon the most. Over there, there's another person forging a divine weapon. At this moment, in another direction, there was another genius forging a divine weapon. However, Qin Wentian was still quietly standing there, not moving at all, as though he was just putting on a false show. Time slowly flowed by. Sharon continued to assist Qin Wentian, controlling the energy within the divine weapon so that the flames wouldn't be extinguished. He stared at the boundless runic light radiating from Qin Wentian, and believed that Qin Wentian was preparing to unleash his strongest attack. If not, he wouldn't be able to defeat the others before he completed his weapon. Sharon hoped that Qin Wentian would be able to forge a peak-tier 5th-ranked divine weapon that he had seen before, one that couldn't be replicated. As time flowed by, Qin Wentian's body was still as resplendent as ever, yet he still didn't move. Gradually, the spectators found it hard to believe that Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to surpass the others. The number of divine weapons forged by the geniuses grew more and more. This entire space would occasionally be filled with resplendent light, causing the spectators to sigh in admiration. The gazes of many gradually shifted away from Qin Wentian, no longer paying any attention to Qin Wentian. Awesome! The forging process is almost complete. There are over 10 geniuses who managed to forge peak-tier 5th-ranked divine weapons, and they are all from the major powers of the Cloud Prefecture. As for top-tier 5th-ranked divine weapons, there are even more who managed to forge them, with a total of over 100. The manifestation of the 9 immortality bells this time can be considered a grand occasion. Someone sighed in admiration as he stared at the scene in the 9 immortality bells. After the geniuses completed their forging process, they started to converse with each other, laughing and joking. But the only regretful thing was that this time around, no one was able to unravel the secret within the 9 immortality bells. Wanting to do so was exceedingly difficult. Generation after generation, it became something impossible. In fact, there were even people who were thinking, could there really be a secret hidden within the 9 immortality bells? Could this be a lie that didn't exist at all? My king, the geniuses of this batch aren't bad at all. The Drift Snow Master smiled at Pei Tianyuan. Not bad indeed. The city lord of your Drift Snow city is truly blessed by the heavens. Every time the 9 immortality bells chimed, there would be so many geniuses rushing over to your Drift Snow city. Pei Tianyuan replied with a hearty laugh. Ha ha ha, that's true. Being able to see so many geniuses is truly a joyous occasion. The city lord laughed uproariously. Everyone, after the weaponsmithing session ends, I wonder if those who came from afar would honor me with a banquet? The city lord of the Drift Snow city clasped his hands to the experts in the surroundings. Sure, let's stay here and enjoy the beautiful scenery of the Drift Snow Inn. Someone agreed. Sure. Another person spoke. After which the experts from the major powers all agreed. Although these major powers were constantly competing against each other in the dark, they appeared to be in harmony right now. The geniuses from the major powers have truly broadened my horizons. The city lord's tone was extremely polite, causing everyone to nod humbly. Boom! Just as they were conversing, A bell chime abruptly rang out. This bell chime reverberated through the air, extremely resounding. In just an instant, the entire area turned silent as the gazes of everyone turned to the 9 immortality bells. Boom! Another bell chime rang out. The 9 immortality bells radiated a boundless radiance, as though they were one entity. Resplendent light could be seen intersecting as the boundless runic light congregated together, as though they were completely triggered. What's going on? Who triggered the 9 immortality bells? Pei Tianyuan's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he swept his gaze over the surroundings. Boom! A third chime rang out, this time even louder than before. Pei Tianyuan's voice was instantly drowned out. Boom! Boom! The fourth and fifth chimes rang out one after another, as though there would be no end to them. In the blink of an eye, the bell chimes rang out 8 times. It was already impossible to tell which bell chimes originated from. The 9 immortality bells chimed out together. When the 9th chime rang out, the entire space transformed into a tempest, filled with boundless runic light. What's going on exactly? Countless people inclined their heads, staring in the direction of the 9 immortality bells. However, they had no way to see what was happening. Right now, in Qin Wentian's perception, the 9 immortality bells seemed to have fused together as one entity. On the surface of the 9 immortality bells, there was a terrifying law energy that contained supreme might. This law energy converged into a 10,000-meter tall humanoid figure. Is this the law energy contained within the 9 immortality bells? Qin Wentian's heart trembled. On the body of the humanoid figure, boundless runes of light transformed into incomparably profound characters that floated about unceasingly. It was like a powerful innate technique, flashing before Qin Wentian's eyes. The person who attracted the 9 immortality bells is already qualified to connect with immortality, through forging a weapon. Qin Wentian spoke. At this moment, the spectators only saw Qin Wentian waving his hands. A moment later, he brought the long spear with him as he shot towards the convergence of the 9 immortality bells. What is he doing? The countenances of the spectators stiffened when they saw this scene. They only saw Qin Wentian soaring up into the air, standing proudly above the 9 immortality bells. With a wave of his hand, the long spear shot out, directly entering the boundless runic light storm, connecting with immortality through forging a weapon. This law energy, why don't you bestow it to me? Fuse it with my own energy and infuse it into a divine weapon. Qin Wentian silently mused. His aura gushed forth as he activated the law energy. In an instant, the boundless storm transformed into a long river that flowed towards the long spear. Come in. Qin Wentian roared. In his perception, the 10,000-meter tall humanoid figure directly drilled into the long spear. In just an instant, the storm gradually calmed down. The long spear in the middle of the runic light started to vibrate violently as a beam of light shot up into the sky. It was as though that beam of light was cleansing the entire divine weapon. The chimes of the 9 immortality bells were triggered by him. The eyes of the spectators trembled as they stared fixedly at Qin Wentian and the long spear. Chapter 784. The divine spear shimmered with boundless light, shooting straight up into the sky as though wanting to pierce through the heavens. A terrifying immortal light flashed, and in an instant, the surroundings of the long spear were enveloped by a boundless halo of light. The halo of light was akin to an immortal halo, illuminating this entire space. How can this be possible? Pei Tianyuan and the rest had expressions of shock on their faces as they stared at the scene before them. Immortals naturally had a halo of light around them. When they walked on the streets, if they didn't intentionally retract it, the halo of light would illuminate their surroundings. Even in the darkness of the night, it would be as bright as day. It was the same for divine weapons as well. When an immortal ranked weapon was forged, it would shed off its mortal body and glow with immortal light. This indicated that the divine weapon forged was an immortal ranked weapon, transcending the mortal body and transforming into an immortal. Not only was Pei Tianyuan's heart pounding, everyone in the surroundings was shocked as well. The experts from the major powers all froze as they stared at the immortal ranked long spear. Could a third-level ascendant really forge an immortal-ranked weapon? Such a situation had never been seen or heard of before. The 9 immortality bells really contain immortality? Everyone stared at the resplendent bells. It was impossible for Qin Wentian to achieve this with his own weaponsmithing abilities. In that case, he must have borrowed the power of the 9 immortality bells. But even so, Qin Wentian was the first person to borrow the power of the 9 immortality bells to forge an immortal-ranked weapon. This indicated that he had already formed a connection with the 9 immortality bells, connecting immortality with his weapon forging. Is this the meaning of ascending to immortality in a single step? Qin Wentian himself was also shocked. He inclined his head and stared at the newly born immortal-ranked weapon. What he saw was different from the others. Other than the immortal-ranked weapon, he could faintly see the silhouette of an ancient immortal standing within the long spear. Drift Snow Master, the 9 immortality bells contain your soul. Is this a manifestation of your spirit? Qin Wentian silently mused. From the gigantic silhouette, he could clearly see many flowing runic lights, and there seemed to be many ancient characters engraved on it. Immortal physique. So it turns out that the Drift Snow Master cultivated an ancient immortal physique, which allowed him to have a 10,000-meter-tall physique. Not only that, he used his supreme might to refine his physique into a weapon. This is truly similar to my Fiend God body refinement art. Qin Wentian stared at the shining ancient characters as his heart trembled. This was actually an immortal physique tempering art. If he succeeded in cultivating it, and complemented it with the Fiend God heavenly suppression art, and the Fiend God body refinement art, the might he could unleash would be unimaginably terrifying. He actually managed to forge an immortal artifact. Chiron, who was at the side, was also stunned. He initially hoped that Qin Wentian would be able to forge a unique peak-tier 5th-ranked weapon, surpassing Jiang Yan and the rest. But he didn't even dare to imagine that Qin Wentian would be able to forge an immortal-ranked weapon. The long spear in the air shimmered with boundless light, shimmering with a halo of light. This was clearly the sign of an immortal armament. As for Jiang Yan, Nian and the rest, their countenances were all pale as they stared in disbelief at the scene before them. In fact, they were even shaking their heads unceasingly, as though they wanted to deny the reality before their eyes. The young man who defeated them, by relying on his supreme comprehension of the runic inscriptions around the 9 immortality bells, actually managed to connect with immortality and forge an immortal-ranked weapon. At this instant, countless gazes were focused on Qin Wentian. That young man standing arrogantly in the air, forging an immortal-ranked weapon in front of the 9 immortality bells, would definitely become a legend in the Drift Snow City. It has a spirit. The 9 immortality bells truly have a spirit. Today, a legend related to weaponsmithing has appeared in our Drift Snow City. At the outer perimeter of the 9 immortality bells, the people of the Drift Snow City all personally witnessed this scene as their hearts couldn't help but to sigh in admiration. At this moment, in the air, Qin Wentian slowly walked towards the immortal-ranked weapon. The boundless radiance of the 9 immortality bells cascaded down on him, and at this instant, Qin Wentian felt as though his will had fused together with the 9 immortality bells. His will was the will of the 9 immortality bells. Within the will of the 9 immortality bells, there seemed to be an ancient city. This city was covered in snowflakes and every inch of the ground was like an impenetrable fortress, with flesh and blood. It was as though this city was created from the essence of life. This city seemed to be none other than the Drift Snow City of the past. Right now, it directly appeared in Qin Wentian's mind. Within the 9 immortality bells, there's a will of an entire city. I used the 9 immortality bells to forge an immortal-ranked weapon, connecting with immortality through the forging process. It seems that I've successfully forged an entire city. Qin Wentian sensed something in his heart. Everything in this city seemed so clear to him. The will of the 9 immortality bells seemed to be able to control this city, and his will represented the will of the 9 immortality bells. Connecting with the 9 immortality bells through weapon forging, ascending to immortality in a single step. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. Right now, he could indeed be considered as half a disciple of the Drift Snow Master. In addition, The Drift's Now Master was someone from ancient times. Even if he became half a disciple of the Drift's Now Master, it wouldn't be considered breaking the rules of the Heavenly Talisman realm. He didn't join any other powers or experts. It was only because of this experience that he had formed an indissoluble bond with the Drift's Now Master. Naturally, if it wasn't for the insights he gained from the innate ability treasure tome in the Heavenly Talisman realm, he wouldn't be able to reach this level. Qin Wentian was immersed in his own world. This caused the gazes of the experts in the air to flicker as they stared at him. Their eyes would occasionally flash with light, as though they were in deep contemplation. It was a fact that this young man had forged an immortal-ranked weapon, connecting with immortality through weapon forging, in addition to the fact that he was basking in the boundless resplendent light. Did something happen to him? Was the secret of the 9 immortality bells unraveled by him? If it was unraveled, what was the secret hidden within the 9 immortality bells? The eyes of experts from the Jiang clan gleamed with sharpness. Jiang Yan and the other geniuses of the Jiang clan stood among the crowd, their countenances extremely unsightly to behold. They were the chosen of the sacred ground of the Cloud Prefecture, the Jiang clan. With so many geniuses here, they were actually completely suppressed by a single person. With this young man here, their brilliance was no longer there. They were all reduced to mediocrity. He must have obtained the aid of the 9 immortality bells. Right now, there's a high possibility that he's trying to establish a connection with them. Jiang Yan spoke, reminding the Immortal Foundation experts of the Jiang clan. Not only Jiang Yan felt this way, everyone else was thinking this way as well. This young man borrowed the might of the 9 immortality bells to forge an immortal-ranked weapon. In that case, could it be that he was trying to pry into the secret of the 9 immortality bells? Only to see that at this moment, an expert shrouded in immortal light stepped out. His halo of light shone resplendently, and within this halo of light, there were traces of battle intent within, as though he was born with an innate battle intent. The gaze of this person contained a terrifying penetrative power. He stared downwards, staring at the long spear as well as Qin Wentian. He then spoke. This divine weapon is actually an immortal-ranked weapon. How about lending it to me for a look? Although his tone was asking, he directly stretched his hand out and grabbed towards the long spear. Qin Wentian abruptly inclined his head, his eyes gleaming with sharpness as he spoke. I haven't agreed yet. Senior, don't you think it's inappropriate for you to forcefully seize it? If you reject, that would be disrespectful to Senior. That person coldly laughed. As the sound of his voice faded, his palm that was grabbing down from the air expanded madly, transforming into an invincible palm that directly grabbed towards the immortal-ranked divine weapon. There was no fear in his eyes at all. That palm shone with a diamond-like luster. It was extremely tough and indestructible. Senior, you are an immortal, yet you dare to bully a junior like this? Isn't that a little too ungentlemanly? Qin Wentian spoke once more. As the sound of his voice faded, the long spear pierced through the air, radiating boundless light as it shot towards the gigantic palm imprint. This beam of light seemed indestructible, directly slamming into the gigantic palm imprint. However, at this moment, the luster from the palm imprint was still as bright as before, as though it contained an indestructible immortal might. Immortal light shone around the palm imprint, containing true immortal might. Didn't your elders teach you to respect your seniors? That expert coldly snorted, his voice directly penetrating into Qin Wentian's heart. Just a single sound wave was sufficient to cause Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. Are you even worthy of being called a senior? Qin Wentian mocked. At this moment, the divine spear suddenly expanded to 10,000 meters. Immortal light revolved around it, incomparably resplendent, as though it contained boundless energy within, capable of destroying everything and suppressing the entire sky. The long spear pierced out explosively. With a thunderous boom, the palm imprint directly shattered apart, transforming into motes of light. However, the immortal-ranked long spear continued piercing out, straight towards the Immortal Foundation expert who was attacking. This scene caused the eyes of that Immortal Foundation expert from the Battle Heaven's immortal manor to flash with coldness. He stepped out and slammed both his palms down. Immortal light shone brilliantly, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. The light from the long spear was repelled, and the palm imprint he blasted out was also destroyed. The expressions of the crowd trembled as they stared in shock at Qin Wentian. He actually wanted to use an immortal-ranked divine weapon to fight against an Immortal Foundation expert? This was definitely madness. Immortal-ranked divine weapons were ultimately still divine weapons. They were merely external sources of power. If one borrowed external power, how could they contend against true immortals? It was just that because this immortal-ranked divine weapon was personally forged by Qin Wentian, his control over it was extremely strong. Hence, the might it could erupt forth was extremely terrifying. If not, ordinary celestial phenomenon ascendants wouldn't be able to unleash the might of an immortal-ranked divine weapon. However, Qin Wentian was different. He borrowed the power of an immortal-ranked divine weapon and directly fought against an Immortal Foundation expert. What truly shocked everyone was that Qin Wentian actually dared to act against an Immortal Foundation expert. His cultivation base was at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon. Even if he borrowed the power of the 9 immortality bells, it would be extremely easy for an Immortal Foundation expert to kill him. How crazy! He actually dared to directly retaliate against an Immortal Foundation expert. The spectators from afar silently mused. They only saw that Immortal Foundation expert staring at Qin Wentian as he spoke. "I'm just borrowing your divine weapon to take a look, and you actually dare to obstruct me? Do you not want your life anymore?" The threat in his eyes was extremely dense, the sharpness of his gaze piercing through Qin Wentian's eyes. The others naturally wouldn't object. Now that there was someone who stood out to bully Qin Wentian, it would save them the trouble of acting personally and leaving behind a bad reputation. But in truth, although Qin Wentian managed to forge an immortal-ranked divine weapon today, it was precisely because of this that there was no way for him to be at peace. When Qin Wentian heard the threat in his opponent's voice, he inclined his head and stared at that Immortal Foundation expert. His eyes flickered with arrogance as he spoke. "Using Immortal Foundation to suppress me? Despicable characters like you only dare to do such despicable things. I'm afraid that among Immortal Foundation experts, you are nothing but an ant-like existence, trampled on by others." Chapter 785. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the hearts of the crowd surged as their hearts trembled unceasingly. "Crazy, this fellow has truly gone crazy," someone mumbled, staring at the location where Qin Wentian was at. That young man stood proudly in the air, exuding boundless arrogance. Although his talent in forging immortal-ranked weapons was unrivaled, wasn't his words a little too arrogant? He didn't know how to endure. It was one thing for him to deal with those below the Immortal Foundation realm. But when facing Immortal Foundation characters, he actually dared to say such words. This was simply courting death. Immortal Foundation characters weren't existences those below the Immortal Foundation realm could contend against. This was an ironclad rule. Below immortals, all were mortals. In the eyes of immortals, those below the Immortal Foundation, no matter how talented you are still immortal. Even if your talent is good, you might not be able to step over the threshold and become an immortal. For those who could become immortals, none of them were simple characters. All of them were extremely powerful, and were all geniuses of the past. At this moment, Qin Wentian spoke arrogantly, saying that the Immortal Foundation character was nothing but an ant-like existence in the immortal realm. This was already a public provocation, a declaration of war against immortals. This brat, what did he rely on to be so arrogant, putting immortals in his eyes? Could it be that because he forged an immortal-ranked weapon, he is incomparably arrogant and doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth? Does he really think that with an immortal-ranked weapon, he would be able to contend against immortals? The crowd mused in their hearts. If this was the case, Qin Wentian would surely receive a painful lesson. In fact, this lesson might even cost him his life. And as expected, how could that immortal expert from the battle heaven's immortal manor endure such humiliation from someone of a lower cultivation level? However, he wasn't angered. To Immortal Foundation characters, they had experienced countless hardships before they could become immortals. Their personalities were all extremely resilient. Even if they were humiliated by someone of a lower cultivation level, although they were angered in their hearts, they could still restrain themselves. However, the coldness in their eyes flickered with killing intent. Do you know that there's a saying in the immortal realms? Immortals cannot be humiliated. That immortal expert stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian naturally could sense the killing intent from the other party. However, to him he had already connected with immortality through forging a weapon and obtained the recognition of the 9 immortality bells. If he didn't probe out his secrets, these immortal foundation characters wouldn't let this matter rest. Since this was the case, he had to do something. If not, even if this immortal didn't act, there would still be others bullying him. I've never heard of such words before. I only know that those who humiliate others will be humiliated by others. You disregard the dignity of others. What qualifications do you have to gain the respect of others? In my eyes, there's no such thing as immortals or mortals. There are only friends and enemies. I only know that those who humiliate others will be humiliated by others. So what if you have an immortal foundation weapon? In my eyes, there's no such thing as immortals or mortals. There's only friends and enemies. Qin Wentian's eyes were cold as he stared straight at the immortal expert. As the sound of his voice faded, that immortal expert started laughing uproariously. His gaze was as calm as still water, staring at Qin Wentian. Arrogant and ignorant, there's only friends and enemies. Just you? Are you even qualified to be my enemy? Qin Wentian silently stared at the immortal foundation expert in the air as his countenance abruptly turned as calm as still water. There was no anger, not even the slightest fluctuation. Even if the immortal foundation expert said that in the eyes of the immortal foundation expert, his life was like grass, like an animal. Even if the immortal foundation expert wanted to take his life and take his memories. Is this your true nature? Qin Wentian stared at the sky as he mumbled. Come on. I'll let you know what it means to be an immortal. The immortal expert in the air spoke with cold arrogance. After which, his palms expanded explosively as a gigantic palm imprint manifested. Immortal halos revolved around it, capable of destroying everything. Such might could truly shake the heavens and earth. It was unknown how many people below the immortal realm would die with a single palm strike. Although Qin Wentian was very far away from the immortal expert, he could still feel a supreme pressure gushing over. With an intention of his will, the 9 immortality bells chimed madly as boundless halos revolved around him. A resplendent armor of light covered his body, preventing the pressure from destroying him. At the same time, his long spear erupted forth, shimmering with boundless immortal light, breaking apart everything as it slammed into the gigantic palm imprint. Thunderous rumbling sounds rang out as the gigantic palm imprint shattered. However, this was only the beginning. Do you think that a mere immortal ranked weapon would be able to obstruct me from killing you? A voice filled with arrogance drifted over. That immortal foundation expert stepped out towards Qin Wentian. And with every step he took, a supreme pressure blasted onto Qin Wentian, causing the halos around Qin Wentian to tremble violently as though they were about to shatter at any moment. If it wasn't for the fact that he was borrowing the might of the 9 immortality bells, that immortal expert would have already killed him with a single step. The disparity between immortals and mortals was truly hard to bridge. This was especially so when Qin Wentian was still so weak, only at the 3rd level of celestial phenomenon. How could he fight against an immortal? This man humiliated an immortal foundation expert, and doesn't know how to restrain himself. I'm afraid he will die for sure. The spectators from afar opened their mouths in disbelief, silently musing at how terrifying immortal foundation experts were. That immortal foundation expert seemed to have 3 heads and 6 arms. In the air, numerous gigantic palm imprints blasted out, blotting out the sky as they blasted towards Qin Wentian. Even the space here seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Immortal foundation experts are simply too terrifying. How can this man block them with just a single immortal ranked weapon? Everyone felt as though they could already see the doomsday of Qin Wentian. Each and every palm imprint glowed with a resplendent immortal light, causing the entire sky to grow even brighter. A battle between Immortal Foundation experts was truly dazzling. Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever. There were no fluctuations at all. With a wave of his hand, the divine spear in his hand expanded explosively as a supreme might gushed forth from it. Immortal Foundation divine weapon, suppressing the heavens with a single spear. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with a terrifying light. His long spear stabbed out in anger, sweeping through the sky. This spear strike was like a primordial giant unleashing a fatal strike. A formless immortal light radiated outwards, radiating waves of destruction that gushed towards the sky. The palm imprints all trembled violently before shattering into pieces. A terrifying explosion rocked this entire space. The might contained within was truly capable of shaking the heavens and earth. Before the aftershocks dissipated, Qin Wentian saw a lofty figure appearing in the air above him. This was none other than that Immortal Foundation expert. His body seemed to have grown larger as an immortal halo radiated from him. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the hearts of others. And when he stared at Qin Wentian, it was as though he was looking at an ant. Despite the fact that Qin Wentian had already used his divine weapon to block 2 of his attacks, however, this couldn't change anything. In his eyes, Qin Wentian was already a dead man. To think that by borrowing the power of the 9 immortality bells, you would actually be able to forge such a divine weapon. However, although this divine weapon was forged by you, you aren't worthy enough to own it. What's the point of a dead man wanting an immortal weapon? That immortal expert calmly spoke. The immortal light radiating from him grew even stronger, radiating boundless immortal might that permeated the entire space. Even the spectators from afar could feel the pressure from his immortal foundation. Let's end this. That Immortal Foundation expert coldly spoke. His body trembled as immortal light flashed, blinding the eyes. Countless palm imprints blasted forth, blotting out the sky as though wanting to shatter the heavens and earth. Boom! At this moment, the chimes of the 9 immortality bells rang out, reverberating through the air. Boom, boom, boom. The chimes rang out unceasingly as boundless runic light converged on Qin Wentian. Within the 9 immortality bells, immortal qi gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian. At this instant, an ancient giant seemed to be standing on top of Qin Wentian, expanding unceasingly. With Qin Wentian in the center, a 10,000-meter tall shadow manifested, exuding an aura that could dominate the heavens. This incomparably gigantic silhouette directly grabbed onto the divine spear. Instantly, the long spear expanded explosively, radiating boundless light as a cold voice abruptly echoed through the air. You are right. What's the point of a dead man wanting an immortal weapon? This voice was none other than Qin Wentian's. However, there was a hint of solemnity in it, as well as an irresistible sense of holiness. That incomparably gigantic shadow grabbed onto the divine spear and pierced out with it. An instant later, the countless palm imprints blasted over were all shattered into pieces. Everywhere it passed by, everything was annihilated, turning into nothingness. This was truly a destructive force, capable of slaughtering the heavens and earth. The countenance of that Immortal Foundation expert drastically changed. The immortal light radiating from him grew even stronger as he frenziedly attacked. However, it was all useless. When the long spear pierced out, all his attacks were shattered. Rumble! This spear strike seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens. That Immortal Foundation expert had a look of terror on his face. He soared through the air, transforming into a beam of light as he fled. However, the long spear in the hands of that gigantic shadow once again expanded, becoming 1,000,000 meters long. With a single strike, even ghosts and gods would be shocked. Chi! A sound rang out. The Immortal Foundation expert in the air halted his escape. The long spear directly pierced into his body, nailing him in the air. So what if you are an immortal? You will die all the same. Qin Wentian's voice reverberated through the heavens and earth once more. With a thunderous boom, immortal light flashed as the body of that Immortal Foundation expert exploded, turning into dust that vanished like smoke in the wind. Immortals would die all the same. This spear strike shocked even ghosts and gods alike. This spear strike was capable of destroying immortals. Before this, that Immortal Foundation expert was incomparably arrogant, treating Qin Wentian's life like grass, like an ant. He could kill him whenever he wanted and even said that he wanted to spare Qin Wentian's life. He wanted to search his soul and plunder his memories. How domineering was that? He didn't even place Qin Wentian in his eyes. Even after his divine weapon blocked 2 of his attacks, he still didn't care about Qin Wentian. He thought that this strike would be sufficient to kill Qin Wentian. But never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that this strike would be his doomsday. A single spear strike from Qin Wentian directly nailed him to death in the air, seizing his immortal path and destroying his life. A single spear strike, killing an immortal. Who said that immortals could be lofty existences, disregarding all mortals below the immortal realm? Who said that immortals could casually humiliate those below the immortal realm? Immortals couldn't be humiliated, but could mortals do the same? Qin Wentian used his strongest method to prove that he couldn't be humiliated. If not, even if you were an immortal, he would still kill you. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.